Chapter 2398. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Lan Qingyan indifferently. Her expression was indifferent and alienated. Won't you know what it is after you feel it? This was something she had specially prepared for Lan Qingyan. After witnessing the various poisons that had been planted in her parents' bodies, a strong hatred had taken root and sprouted in her heart. Therefore, she developed this poison so that Lan Qingyan and the others could also taste the same pain. However, she didn't expect everything to go so smoothly. Even if Lan Qingyan left the Battle of Zhuelu to find Yu Siqing, this poison wouldn't be so easy to cure. She had this confidence. Lan Qingyan's brows were tightly knitted and her face was as black as charcoal. The feeling of her life being controlled by someone else really made her unhappy to the extreme. She had always been the one controlling the lives of others. How could anyone control her? Unfortunately, she met this Bailey Hongzhuang. She was originally in an advantageous position, but in the end, she fell into a disadvantageous position. If you dare to take my life, my Lan clan will definitely not let you off, Lan Qingyan said fiercely. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but chuckle. Lan Qingyan, you said this in the Battle of Zhuelu. Do you think it's a threat? In this Battle of Zhuelu, it's not like the death of a successor hasn't happened before. Death is death. Naturally, there's no value. Once these words came out, Lan Qingyan's face turned black again. She found that this Bailey Hongzhuang was simply impervious to oil and salt. She couldn't be judged with common sense. While Bailey Hongzhuang and Lan Qingyan were fighting, Mo Yunjue and Ouyang Yitian were also locked in battle. The more they fought, the more surprised Ouyang Yitian was. Sure enough, as he expected, the heaven-devouring tower's young master was very powerful. In the process of fighting, he faintly felt that he was no match for him. Ouyang Yitian was very clear about his own strength. It seemed that the heaven-devouring tower's strength was really not simple. Lan Qingyan taking the lead to start a fight with Limitless Palace didn't seem to be a good thing. Bang! Mo Yunjue punched Ouyang Yitian. Ouyang Yitian was hit by the punch carelessly. He groaned and retreated a few steps. His face was a little pale. Seeing this, Mo Yunjue once again dashed forward and attacked. After noticing Mo Yunjue's movements, Ouyang Yitian also quickly retreated to avoid Mo Yunjue's attack. If he was hit by a few more punches, his combat effectiveness would be affected. Just as everyone was fighting in full swing, the ground suddenly began to tremble violently. It was as if an earthquake was happening, and it could collapse at any time. The sudden earthquake caused everyone to stop fighting. They carefully looked at the ground, afraid that something unexpected would happen. Could it be that the shockwaves from the battle were so great that the space around the Battle of Zhuelu fluctuated? Xiao Hei's eyes narrowed. With so many of them fighting at the same time, the shockwaves from the battle were undoubtedly extremely shocking. The battlefield of the Battle of Zhuelu was a small world created by the various factions. If the energy that erupted from within was too great, it was not impossible for the small world to collapse. Chapter 2399. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the three beasties nodded. Logically speaking, this was indeed the case. If it's not the collapse of the space, then what is the reason? Xiao Hei was confused. The ground was cracking inch by inch and was undulating. There was no other explanation for this situation. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Lan Qingyan and the others. She found that Lan Qingyan and the others were also confused, cautiously observing the surrounding terrain, not knowing what had happened. What's going on? Why did this happen all of a sudden? This is too terrifying. I've never seen such a situation before. If the space collapses, I'm afraid all of us will die here, right? At this moment, all the cultivators focused their attention on this matter, and even their original hatred was temporarily forgotten. Let's leave first. Ouyang Yitian's expression was solemn. He didn't know when the ground under his feet would collapse. It was too dangerous to continue staying here. It might be better to leave as far as possible. In the next moment, Ouyang Yitian directly came to Lan Qingyan's side and immediately prepared to leave with her. Bailey Hongzhuang and Mo Yunjue glanced at each other. Apart from this method, they obviously didn't have any other suitable methods. However, just as everyone was about to leave, the ground suddenly collapsed. A formless energy enveloped everyone. and they fell into the ground without being able to resist at all. Suddenly, exclamations mixed with screams quickly resounded. Everyone was in a panic and didn't know what would happen next. Bailey Hongzhuang's face also showed a hint of panic. The situation in front of them was obviously beyond everyone's expectations. What did this sudden collapse mean? Fortunately, everyone didn't fall for long. After a while, everyone's feet touched the ground again. After everyone stepped on the ground again, the exclamations dissipated. The three beasties followed Bailey Hongzhuang closely. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at everything in front of her in shock. This was clearly an underground passage. Looking up at the sky, they didn't know when it had started, but they couldn't see the sky anymore. It was as if they had always been in this underground tunnel. The passageway was made of hard stones, but it didn't feel wet at all even though it was 100 meters underground. Not only that, the air inside didn't feel suffocating either. Seeing this scene, everyone's faces were filled with astonishment. If it weren't for the fact that they were absolutely certain of what they had come into contact with earlier, they would have thought that they were dreaming. Where is this place? A cultivator could not help but ask. Previously, they were only fighting. Why did they suddenly enter such a place? Bailey Hongzhuang and the others couldn't help but look at each other. It was hard to imagine that there would be such a place in the Battle of Zhuolu. Could it be that they had triggered something during the battle? Lan Qingyan's already charcoal black face was dyed with a layer of gloominess at this moment. Today's events were really one wave after another, giving her no chance to catch her breath. It was really depressing. Bailey Hongzhuang was rather calm about all this. She had seen many things ever since she came to the Battle of Zhuolu. She guessed that this was another test. Chapter 2400. There were many people who had the same thoughts as Bailey Hongzhuang. This underground passage was obviously man-made. The major forces would never spend so much effort to create a useless underground passage for no reason. Therefore, there must be treasures here. One of the reasons why everyone participated in the Battle of Zhuolu was that there were many treasures here. The more treasures they obtained, the more room for improvement they would have. In their line of sight, this underground passage was deep and long. It was obvious that it covered a large area. The road behind had been blocked. Everyone could only go forward to have a chance of getting out. Bailey Hongzhuang and Mo Yunjua looked at each other and immediately walked towards the passage. Since they were here, they might as well take things as they came. They wanted to see what was here. The cultivators of Limitless Palace and Shirtian Pavilion followed closely behind. They believed that the Long clan and Ouyang clan would not dare to launch a sneak attack at this time. After seeing the actions of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, Ouyang Yiqian also looked at Lan Qingyan beside him and said, "Qingyan, let's go too." Hearing this, Lan Qingyan nodded. There was no other way at the moment. Although what she wanted the most now was to find a safe place to heal her injuries. Now that she had taken the elixir, her injuries had stopped. It was just that her appearance with a broken arm was too ugly. In addition to that miserable appearance, if others saw it, it would really be a stain on her Lan Qingyan's reputation. The four teams immediately moved forward together along the passage. Everyone's speed was not fast because no one knew if there were any traps here. Fortunately, everything was peaceful along the way. The length of this passage was obviously beyond everyone's expectations. Everyone just moved forward, and the atmosphere was extremely quiet. "Master, this place is so strange. Moreover, we fell into this underground passage without any warning. Do you think the other teams will be like us?" After seeing the astonishing length of this passage, Xiaobai had a thought in her mind. Hearing Xiaobai's words, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes slightly changed. This is not impossible. If that's really the case, then this situation will be interesting. Little White's eyes lit up. Didn't this mean that all of them were gathered together? Originally, they thought that they would have to go all the way to the center of the Battle of Zhuolu before they would meet. If everyone met under the guidance of this passageway, the situation would be even more exciting. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. The rules of the Battle of Zhuolu were different from what they had imagined. However, they would take it one step at a time. Soon they would know everything about the situation. "Hongzhuang, you are now the young palace master of Limitless Palace. This person's fate really makes one sigh." Mo Yunjue's lips curled into a faint smile. When he sensed Bailey Hongzhuang's improvement in power, his heart was filled with amazement. Back then, the gap between his cultivation and Bailey Hongzhuang's was not small. Who would have thought that the gap had shrunk to such an extent now? It seemed that during this period of time, Bailey Hongzhuang had a fortuitous encounter in her cultivation. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. That's right. Do you still remember the remains that we entered during the assessment? That was left behind by my master. Chapter 2401. Hongzhuang, your luck is indeed amazing. Mo Yunjue sighed. He knew that many people became the successor after a fortuitous encounter. However, Bailey Hongzhuang became the successor of Limitless Palace after entering the ruins during the assessment. This was extremely rare. There were many ruins during the assessment, but most of them were treasures left behind by experts to help cultivators increase their strength. This kind of successor selection could be said to be 1 in a million. To be able to encounter Bailey Hongzhuang, one could see how heaven-defying Bailey Hongzhuang's luck was. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly. A lot of things are fated. She felt that the fate between her master and herself was predestined. It was because of the rainbow pearl. Yunjue, thank you so much for today. If you didn't appear in time, we would be in danger this time. With our friendship, I would naturally help if I happened to arrive. I can only say that I came at the right time. His handsome and resolute face rippled with a faint and gentle smile. Only when he saw Bailey Hongzhuang, Mo Yunjue would not be stingy with his smile. No matter what, you saved us, especially in front of Lan Qingyan. I will remember this kindness in my heart. Her clear black and white eyes flashed with sincerity. Every time she saw Mo Yunjue spare no effort to help her. Bailey Hongzhuang's heart was always filled with gratitude and guilt. She remembered all the kindness Mo Yunjue gave her. However, for a man like Mo Yunjue, what chance did she have to help him? She didn't know, but she felt that no matter what she did, she would not be able to repay him. Because Mo Yunjue gave her too much. Mo Yunjue looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's bright eyes and understood what she was thinking. He just wanted to do something for Bailey Hongzhuang, and didn't want Bailey Hongzhuang to feel burdened. To him, as long as he could still do something, it would be great. Hongzhuang, haven't you seen Debaichen yet? Mo Yunjue immediately changed the topic. He didn't want Bailey Hongzhuang to focus too much on this matter. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head with a helpless look on her face. She had originally wanted to meet up with Debaichen after the Battle of Zhualu. That way, even if they met an allied team, they wouldn't be much of a threat. Unfortunately, things didn't go as she wished. She didn't see any trace of Debaichen along the way. Instead, she met up with the Lan family team so quickly. However, all in all, teaching Lan Qingyan a lesson and taking away the Lan family cultivator's identity token was a good thing. The Battle of Zhualu covers a large area and it's completely random. It's not easy to find a team. Mo Yunjue spoke slowly. However, we are following this underground tunnel towards the center of the Battle of Zhualu. We might meet Tiangang Sec's team at any time. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up. Looks like we have the same idea. Mo Yunjue nodded. This underground tunnel is very long. It's obviously leading us to a place. That means we can only go deeper and not in the opposite direction. Thinking about it, the other teams might be in the same tunnel as us. Chapter 2402. Because of the relationship between Bailey Hongzhuang and Lan Qingyan, the team was surprisingly quiet along the way. Even if everyone had some guesses in their hearts, they still lowered their voices, unwilling to let the enemy know. Lan Qingyan and Ouyang Yitian kept a certain distance from Bailey Hongzhuang and Lan Qingyan. Ouyang Yitian, looking at this situation, is it possible that Bailey Hongzhuang and Mo Yunjue are a couple? Lan Qingyan's gaze was locked on the two figures in front of her. In her heart, she was 1,000 times unwilling to see such a situation happen. Hearing this, Ouyang Yitian thought for a moment and said, "It's very possible. Looking at their appearance, they should have known each other for a long time. If they didn't know each other for a long time, Bailey Hongzhuang and Mo Yunjue wouldn't have such a tacit understanding. What's more, according to Lan Qingyan, Bailey Hongzhuang had just become the young palace master of Limitless Palace. He felt that it was very possible that they had already known each other before Bailey Hongzhuang became the young palace master of Limitless Palace. Although Limitless Palace hasn't been established for a long time, its strength isn't weak. The union between Mo Yunjue and Bailey Hongzhuang shouldn't be hindered. It was precisely because it hadn't been established for a long time that there was no conflict between Limitless Palace and Shirtian Pavilion. If the two were of the same mind, then it should be a happy thing for everyone to be together. In addition, whether it was Bailey Hongzhuang or Mo Yunjue, they were both extremely outstanding. There was nothing to nitpick about when the two were together. Listening to Ouyang Etienne's words, Lan Qingyan couldn't help but bite her lips. The dissatisfaction in her heart was about to drown her. She would rather be together with Mo Yunjue than let Bailey Hongzhuang win over her. However, when Mo Yunjue appeared previously, his gaze fell on Bailey Hongzhuang from beginning to end. He almost didn't even look at her. It really angered her to death. Even if Bailey Hongzhuang's appearance was more outstanding than hers, Lan Qingyan was not someone who could be easily ignored, right? However, from the beginning until now, Mo Yunjue only had eyes for two people, Bailey Hongzhuang and Ouyang Etienne. She was completely ignored. Ouyang Etienne looked at Lan Qingyan's constantly changing expression and guessed the latter's thoughts. He and Lan Qingyan had known each other for so many years, and he had long understood Lan Qingyan's narrow-mindedness. Bailey Hongzhuang was always in the limelight, so Lan Qingyan must have been angry to death. However, he couldn't say anything in this situation. After all, they were enemies with Bailey Hongzhuang. As the group gradually moved forward, four tunnels suddenly appeared in front of them. Seeing this scene, everyone's faces were filled with astonishment. They did not understand what was going on. 4 paths? Does this mean that our 4 teams will have to split up? A cultivator could not help but ask. 4 teams, 4 paths. It was as if they had been allocated beforehand. After Bailey Hongzhuang saw the 4 paths, her beautiful eyes flashed with a wisp of wisdom. It seemed that they had come here long ago. Mo Yunjue took a few steps forward and saw that there was a small plaque hanging at the side of the path. On the plaque there was a simple line of words. 1 path for each team. Simple and crude, it gave everyone the following directions. However, they couldn't predict what would happen after entering the path. Chapter 2403. He originally wanted to use this opportunity to spend more time with Bailey Hongzhuang. At least before Di Beichen appeared, he could protect Bailey Hongzhuang. However, he didn't expect that this underground passage would have such a situation. Every team had to be separated. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly. We will definitely meet again. Using this passage to separate us, there must be a test left for us. As long as we pass the test, I'm afraid everyone will gather in one place. After experiencing many adventures, Bailey Hongzhuang had a certain understanding of these situations and routines. She was almost certain that this was the final result. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Mo Yunjue's smile widened. I didn't expect that in such a short time, you would have a certain understanding of this test. Bailey Hongzhuang was full of smiles. Although the test set by the Battle of Zhualu had a certain degree of difficulty, it shouldn't be life-threatening. After all, every force wouldn't know if it would be their team that would encounter this danger in the end. Therefore, it should only be a matter of whether they would get it or not. At this moment, Lan Qingyan and Ouyang Etienne had also walked to the front of the passage. After seeing the words written on the plaque, their expressions changed a little. Among them, Lan Qingyan's expression was the most unsightly. Now that she had fallen into such a situation, it wasn't easy for her to meet up with Ouyang Etienne. With Ouyang Etienne by her side to take care of her, she didn't have to worry about danger. However, now they were separated. Once they encountered other teams, wouldn't their Lan family's team be at a disadvantage? Thinking of this, Lan Qingyan couldn't help but glare hatefully at Bailey Hongzhuang. If it wasn't for Bailey Hongzhuang, how could she have fallen into such a situation? Bailey Hongzhuang naturally also noticed Lan Qingyan's hateful gaze, but she simply couldn't be bothered to pay attention to it. Her hatred for Lan Qingyan was much deeper than Lan Qingyan's hatred for her at this moment. Qingyan, it seems that we can only separate for the time being. Ouyang Etian said slowly. In fact, he was also a little worried about Lan Qingyan. They didn't know what kind of test there was in this passage. No matter what, Lan Qingyan was still his future wife. He didn't want anything to happen to Lan Qingyan. Hearing this, even though Lan Qingyan was somewhat unwilling, there was nothing she could do. After all, this was the rule of the underground passage. Hongzhuang, which tunnel do you want to enter? Mo Yunjue asked Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the 4 paths in front of her. She didn't care which path she chose. According to her judgment, these 4 paths should only be used to separate the 4 teams. The test should be the same. Therefore, Bailey Hongzhuang directly pointed to the second path and said, "Our limitless palace will take this path." Yunju, I'll see you after we get out of the tunnel. Mo Yunjue nodded. Alright, be careful. However, just as Bailey Hongzhuang made this choice, Lan Qingyan also stood in front of that path. Clearly, she was also interested in this passage. Lan Qingyan couldn't help but glare at Bailey Hongzhuang. She felt that this Bailey Hongzhuang was deliberately going against her. Bailey Hongzhuang coldly glanced at Lan Qingyan. Get out of the way. Chapter 2404. Lan Qingyan stood blankly in the same place, watching Bailey Hongzhuang disappear in front of her. Her face could be said to be extremely ugly. Bailey Hongzhuang was too arrogant. However, when she reacted, Bailey Hongzhuang had already disappeared. She couldn't help but look at Mo Yunjue. However, Mo Yunjue ignored Lan Qingyan from beginning to end, as if he didn't see Lan Qingyan's ugly expression at all. He coldly led the team and left. Lan Qingyan could only look at Ouyang Etian. All the humiliation she had suffered in her life was condensed to this day. Ouyang Etian, you must avenge me. Lan Qingyan stomped the ground with her feet. Where was her usual noble appearance? She only wanted someone to help her teach Bailey Hongzhuang a lesson. Otherwise, her heart would definitely not be balanced. Ouyang Etian saw this and felt helpless. He immediately nodded and said, Qing, don't worry. After leaving this passage, I will definitely avenge you. Following Ouyang Etian's words, Lan Qingyan's eyes were suddenly filled with gratitude and resentment towards Bailey Hongzhuang. Then I'll leave it to you. After Limitless Palace's disciples walked into the passage, they recalled the words Bailey Hongzhuang said to Lan Qingyan, get out of the way. They couldn't help but praise in their hearts. It seemed that young palace master was also not an ordinary domineering person. With Lan Qingyan's identity, perhaps no one could make her suffer like this. Thinking of this, everyone felt a burst of joy. Lan Qingyan's aura was still weak in front of their young palace master. I don't know where this passage will lead to. This is really strange. Yin Aoshuang's face was filled with disbelief. From the time they inexplicably fell into the passage until now, they still felt that everything was like a dream. Now there is no other choice. We can only take one step at a time. Maybe it will be another test like what we experienced before. Long Xianjing was very calm. His thoughts were the same as the young palace master's. There was no point in worrying, so it was better to just calmly walk down this path. With all 4 teams here, it was unlikely that they would be completely wiped out. Young palace master, do you know the young master of the Heaven Slaughter Tower? When only Bailey Hongzhuang and her group were left, the curiosity in the hearts of the Limitless Palace's disciples emerged. The young master of the Heaven Slaughter Pavilion was an extremely mysterious figure. If they had not had the opportunity to see him today, they would not have known the true appearance of the Heaven Slaughter Pavilion's young master. They had clearly seen Mo Yunjue's attitude towards the young palace master. It was obvious that he had feelings for the young palace master. If the young palace master could really be together with Mo Yunjue, they felt that it would be a good thing. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. We've known each other for several years. Thinking back to when they first met, she was only a student of the Azure Water School. Now, she was already the young palace master of Limitless Palace. In these few years she had experienced too many things. Yin Aoshuang sized up Bailey Hongzhuang, then asked tentatively, Young palace master, is he your sweetheart? As soon as these words came out, the team could not help but burst into laughter. Chapter 2405. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the gossipy hearts of the people in the team and felt a burst of helplessness in her heart. Sure enough, no matter when, everyone would inevitably be curious about this kind of thing. In order to avoid misunderstandings, Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head and said, "No, this answer was obviously beyond everyone's expectations." Everyone felt that this was a definite answer, but they didn't expect the young palace master to deny it. However, the feelings that Mo Yunjue showed to the young palace master were clearly not fake. What's more, Mo Yunjue said that the young palace master's business was his business. If he didn't care about someone very much, how could Mo Yunjue say such a thing? Everyone looked at each other, but soon, everyone had already figured out the reason. It was likely that Mo Yunjue had feelings for the young palace master, but the young palace master had no feelings for Mo Yunjue. However, for an outstanding man like Mo Yunjue to not be moved by the young palace master, this was really amazing. Yan Aoshuang couldn't help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang. However, their young palace master was also an exceptionally outstanding existence. Lan Qingyan was an extremely famous figure among the younger generation of successors, but now she had suffered such a big loss in the hands of the young palace master. It seemed that the young palace master was a woman who could be compared with Lan Qingyan. Actually, I think that Ouyang Yitian is not as good as Mo Yunjue. Isn't that so? Ouyang Yitian was still very polite when talking to Mo Yunjue. But Mo Yunjue completely ignored him. This can be seen from this point. If the young palace master and Mo Yunjue can be together, it would be a perfect match made in heaven. Everyone whispered. The Shutian Pavilion was already a very extraordinary existence in the Shangxian continent. Thinking about it, even in the entire Shangxian continent, there was probably no one more outstanding than Mo Yunjue. You don't have to worry about it. Our master already has a sweetheart. Xiao He saw that everyone was concerned about this matter, and couldn't help but speak up. Mo Yunjue was indeed a very outstanding man, but Di Beichen was not worse than Mo Yunjue. In terms of feelings, there was no comparison at all. It felt that its master and Di Beichen were a match made in heaven. At least, the tacit understanding between them was unparalleled. So many years of waiting and companionship was not something that ordinary people could do. Everyone was stunned when they heard Xiao Hei's words. They looked at Xiao Hei in astonishment. The young palace master already had a sweetheart of her heart? Who was the young master's sweetheart? Young's young. However, Xiao Hei didn't intend to continue after arousing everyone's curiosity. Anyway, it wouldn't take long for everyone to find out. Seeing that Xiao Hei had already closed its mouth, although everyone was very curious, it was not good to continue asking. It would be too gossipy. Bailey Hongzhuang led everyone forward, but found that the passage seemed to be endless, and there were no signs of danger. It was really a little confusing. Master, it seems that this passage is really going to take us to the center of the Battle of Zhualu. Chapter 2406. Bailey Hongzhuang's delicate and perfect face was filled with thoughts. After a moment of silence, she slowly said, "Don't be impatient. Maybe the major forces arranged this tunnel to test our patience." To a cultivator, patience was an extremely important factor. In the process of cultivation, a cultivator had to be able to endure loneliness and also had to have enough patience. Neither of these were dispensable. The underground tunnel in front of them was deep and had no destination. It was exhausting everyone's patience bit by bit. Perhaps this was one of the great rewards they had gained from coming to the underground tunnel. After hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the people who were originally slightly irritated gradually calmed down. Now that the initiative was not in their hands, they could only bide their time. It would be terrible if he was the one who panicked first. Finally, after 6 hours, 10 passageways suddenly appeared in front of everyone. Seeing this, everyone could not help but be stunned for a moment. Are the 10 of us going to be separated? Everyone could not help but be dumbfounded. First, the 4 teams were separated. Now, the 10 of them were separated. What was the purpose of this? Isn't the Battle of Zhualu supposed to be fought according to the teams? Why are we being separated now? Pei Yifun's face was full of confusion. This situation was simply illogical. If the whole team moved together, no matter what danger they encountered, they would still have some confidence in dealing with it. However, if all of them were to split up, the danger would greatly increase. Once they encountered other teams, they would be nothing more than sitting ducks. If they were not careful, they would be wiped out. Long Xianjing and Bailey Hongzhuang looked at each other. Their faces were dyed with a solemn light. This situation was indeed beyond everyone's expectations. Currently, this is the only path in front of us. I'm afraid there is no other way but to continue down this path. Long Xianjing said in a deep voice. Now that they were on the chopping block, they simply did not have any other choice. Moreover, they were now hundreds of meters underground. If they wanted to return to the surface, even with their strength, it was impossible to do so. Everyone's heart sank. Everyone was a little nervous about the unknown that they would encounter next. Bailey Hongzhuang's thoughts were also a little complicated. She couldn't make an accurate judgment at the moment. In my opinion, there's no danger in this passage. It's fine for us to stay here for a while. Why don't we take advantage of this opportunity to consume the pills first and increase our strength a little? The danger we will face later will also be reduced by a little. Bailey Hongzhuang took out some pills from her primal chaos ring. If it wasn't for the sudden appearance of Lan Qingyan and the rest, they would have already started absorbing the pills. Although the process was full of twists and turns, the medicinal pill was still in their hands. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, everyone's complicated emotions calmed down a little. Since they couldn't figure it out, they would just ignore it for the time being. Bailey Hongzhuang distributed the pills to everyone, although there are no other teams here. But to be on the safe side, 5 of us will take the pills at a time, and the other 5 will be responsible for guarding. Everyone nodded. Given the current situation, it was best to be careful. Chapter 2407. Thank you, young palace master. Everyone couldn't hide the excitement on their faces. If they hadn't followed the young palace master, it would have been impossible for them to obtain this pill with their own strength. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a faint smile. This is the result of everyone's hard work. There's no need for thanks. To me, you are all my companions. Everything that we obtain in this battle of Zhuolu belongs to each and every one of us. I also hope that everyone has the same thoughts as me. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't consider herself a bad person, but at the same time, she wasn't a good person either. She was only good to those who were good to her and bad to those who were bad to her. This was her view of right and wrong. She was never stingy towards her friends. It was a very good experience for her teammates to improve together. As soon as these words came out, everyone felt a warmth in their hearts. The young palace master really treated them as teammates, and not as chess pieces that would risk their lives for her. It was because of this difference that they were willing to do so many things for the young palace master. Bailey Hongzhuang chose to wait for the other 5 disciples to take the pill before she took it. After all, the 10 of them would be separated. The more the weaker disciples could improve, the more chances they would have to survive. For Bailey Hongzhuang, she had her own life-saving means, so there was no need to rush. While the disciples were absorbing the pill, Bailey Hongzhuang also sized up the 10 tunnels in front of her. These 10 tunnels looked exactly the same as the one they had taken before. There was no difference at all. Moreover, every passage looked the same, and there was no way to differentiate between them. What is the meaning of these tunnels separating us? Bailey Hongzhuang's brows were filled with deep thoughts. This arrangement was a little different. Could it be that this test is targeted at individuals, so we have to be separated? I don't know if only our team has encountered such a situation, or if the other teams are in the same situation as us. Bailey Hongzhuang pondered. Unfortunately, they had no way of knowing the situation of the other teams. The 3 beasties followed beside Bailey Hongzhuang, and were speechless at the situation before them. They really couldn't understand what was going on. Their master was undoubtedly the smartest of them all. If they couldn't even understand their master, then they most likely wouldn't be able to either. Therefore, they just stood there quietly, not knowing if their master would be able to figure it out. Long Xianjing, Yan Aoshuang and the others were also observing the situation of the passageways. The last time they saw the 4 passageways, there was a hint on the signboard. However, the passageway in front of them did not give them any hints at all, which made them feel helpless. Young Palace Master, what would happen if all of us entered the same passage? Yin Aoshuang said slowly. She believed that if other teams were in the same situation as them, there would definitely be many teams that would make the same choice. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. I'm not sure, but I think the purpose of this passage is to separate them, because each team has 10 people. This setup was a little too obvious. Chapter 2408. If one of our cultivators is left alone, it will be much more dangerous. Long Xianjing also agreed with Yin Aoshuang's idea. Although he had heard that there were many tests in the Battle of Zhuolu, he had never heard of the idea of splitting up. It was a little too strange. Bailey Hongzhuang thought about what the two of them had said, then nodded and said, after everyone has absorbed the medicinal energy, we can give it a try. If the group could not be separated, that would be great. However, Bailey Hongzhuang had a premonition that they would be separated. Although there was no reason for this premonition, it had always been very accurate. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang had agreed, Long Xianjing and Yin Aoshuang were relieved. Only when everyone was together this was the safest way. After Pei Yifan and the others had taken the pill, they felt a surge of energy spreading through their bodies. Then it began to fill their cells, increasing their physical strength. This process was painful, but everyone had already mentally prepared themselves before taking the pill. This kind of pain was something that they could endure. In the previous battle, everyone had more or less injuries on their bodies. Some of them were even more serious. Although after taking the pill, these injuries were gradually recovering, but now that their bodies were filled with energy, they could feel that their injuries were quickly recovering. Long Xianjing and the others observed for a while, and found that there were no clues left around the tunnel. After that, they sat down to heal their injuries. The black snake blood ginseng's energy was not small. Everyone was using the black snake blood ginseng's energy to increase their strength. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang had predicted, many cultivators had completed their breakthroughs after taking the pill. Although they were now in the underground tunnel, there was still a lot of yuan qi in the air, so they did not encounter any obstacles in the process of breaking through. Among them, Li Yongbing was the fastest to break through. Ever since he had come to the Battle of Zhuolu, Li Yongbing had been the one who had been injured frequently. He had used all his strength in battles, and his potential had been completely stimulated. Now, with the help of the pill, it could be said that he had broken through quickly. After Li Yongbing had broken through, another cultivator who had been waiting also began to take the pill. Young Palace Master, the effect of your pill is really amazing. I actually broke through directly. Li Yongbing looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in amazement. One could see the admiration he had for Bailey Hongzhuang in his black eyes. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. The black snake blood ginseng is a treasure, and you're on the verge of a breakthrough. It's expected that you'll break through. Li Yongbing waved her hand. Then I have to thank young Palace Master for helping me. If he didn't have the help of this pill, it would take a long time for him to improve just by relying on his cultivation. He could tell that their young palace lord was a kind-hearted person. On the one hand, he had spared no effort to help all of them. On the other hand, he was a little embarrassed to accept their gratitude. However, they remembered all of this in their hearts. Bailey Hongzhuang also took the elixir. After seeing Lan Qingyan and Ouying Yitian's strength, she also knew that there was still a big gap between her strength and theirs. Chapter 2409. By the time Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest had finished absorbing the medicinal effects, it was already 3 days later. Bailey Hongzhuang's physical strength had increased, but her cultivation had not broken through. Bailey Hongzhuang was not surprised by this. She had just broken through 2 levels. If she had broken through again, then the speed of her breakthrough would be too fast. However, her strength had still increased, but it had not reached the point of breakthrough. Young Palace Master, which passage should we take? Yin Aoshuang looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. Now their entire team followed Bailey Hongzhuang's lead. No matter what Bailey Hongzhuang chose, they would not have any objections. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the identical passages in front of her and said, "Let's take the middle one." However, Just as everyone was about to enter the same passage, something strange happened. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest suddenly realized that under their feet, there were different colored halos, and in the opposite passage there were also different colored halos. Seeing this scene, everyone could not help but be stunned. This situation was a little strange. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the halos, and then looked at the color of the cave. She knew that her premonition was not wrong. Sure enough, this passage was to separate each and every one of them. It seems that the color of the halos under our feet will determine which passage we will enter, Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. As the voice of Bailey Hongzhuang fell, everyone looked at it carefully and found that the situation was indeed the case. It was exactly the same. What exactly is this thing? Why must all of us be separated? Yin Aoshuang's face was filled with dissatisfaction. This feeling of not being in control of everything was really uncomfortable. This should have been set up from the beginning. I'm afraid that even if we resist, it will be useless. Long Xuanjing's expression was a little helpless. The situation could not be more obvious. Let me see if it has to be like this. Yin Aoshuang's feet were yellow halos. She directly walked towards the passage shining with red light, wanting to see if she could enter. However, when Yin Aoshuang came to the front of the red passage, she found that there seemed to be a layer of invisible barrier, making it impossible for her to enter. Yin Aoshuang tried for a long time, but found that it was useless. She could only helplessly give up. As expected, there is no other way. Yin Aoshuang spread out her hands. At this moment she had completely given up. Everyone's mood was also extremely complicated. Next they would have to explore by themselves. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at everyone's complicated thoughts and said slowly, "Since the situation is like this now, we can only go in and check it out. I believe that it shouldn't be too dangerous. Everyone be careful. Once we get out, we'll find a way to gather." Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's words, everyone nodded. This was indeed the only way. "Young Palace Master, you must be careful." Long Xianjing looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a dignified expression. As disciples of Limitless Palace, it was not a big deal if there was danger. However, Bailey Hongzhuang was the young palace master. If there was danger, they would not have the face to return to Limitless Palace. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. "Don't worry, I will be fine." Chapter 24:10. Bailey Hongzhuang walked straight into the red circle of light that had lit up beneath her feet. The three beasts followed closely behind Bailey Hongzhuang. It was a good thing that the circle of light only restricted cultivators, and did not restrict the entry of contracted beasts. After Bailey Hongzhuang walked into the tunnel, the circle of light beneath her feet dissipated. The tunnel in front of them was just like the tunnel that they had walked through previously. There were no changes at all. If Bailey Hongzhuang had not sensed the minute changes in the terrain, she would have thought that they had all remained in the same place and had not moved forward at all. After all, she had experienced the illusion of being frozen in place before. "Master, are we going to keep walking forward without knowing when we'll reach the end?" Xiao He was completely speechless at the fact that the environment had not changed at all. There shouldn't be any other tunnels after this. We're the only ones left. Was there something wrong with the fellow who had arranged for this tunnel? How could he have built this thing that we don't even know what it's for? Isn't it too confusing? Xiaobai could not help but complain. It was too boring to just walk around like this. In comparison, Baisher had remained silent the entire time. It could not understand such a strange and brain-draining matter, so it might as well remain silent. Bailey Hongzhuang placed Xiao He on her hand and stroked Xiao He's head with one hand. That soft fur felt very comfortable to touch. Of course, Bailey Hongzhuang's main point was not to stroke Xiao He's fur. She was merely pondering over the true meaning of this tunnel in the process of stroking Xiao He's fur. As they walked, Bailey Hongzhuang's pitch-black phoenix eyes suddenly flashed with a strange light. It was as if she had suddenly understood something and stopped in her tracks. Xiao He had been enjoying Bailey Hongzhuang stroking with narrowed eyes when she saw that Bailey Hongzhuang had suddenly stopped. A puzzled light flashed in her eyes. "Master, what's the matter?" "I've suddenly thought of a possibility." The gazes of the three beasties gathered on Bailey Hongzhuang and they asked in unison, "What possibility?" Bailey Hongzhuang continued to move forward, but her mind was full of thoughts. Do you all remember that Master once said that the Battle of Zhualu is not only a competition of team results, but also an individual's results? The three beasts nodded. Yes, they were a little surprised when they heard this, but what was the problem? That's right. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a confident smile. Previously we had always been together as a team. Even when it came to snatching identity tokens, it was done as a team. If that was the case, how could they compete in individual strength? Now that we're all spread out, we can naturally compete. Previously, Bailey Hongzhuang was also wondering about this because if the entire team was together from the beginning to the end, many successors would hold the identity cards of the entire team in their hands when checking their individual strength. Since that was the case, what difference was there between this and a competition of team strength? Now, there was an explanation for all of this. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's explanation, the three beasties finally understood. Chapter 24:11. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded her head. If my judgment isn't wrong, that's very likely the case. The three beasties thought about it carefully. The more they thought about it, the more they felt that Bailey Hongzhuang's words made sense. It was obvious that this passage was deliberately set up by someone. They spent so much effort to separate everyone. Other than this reason, there was no other reason. Thinking up to here, the three beasties couldn't help but give Bailey Hongzhuang a thumbs up. Master, you're really too awesome. You can actually think of this point. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled up. Everything still depends on the outcome. After Bailey Hongzhuang continued to move forward for 2 hours, suddenly, her line of sight widened. A huge light screen appeared in front of her. Within the light screen there was actually a martial arts stage. Looking at this scene, Bailey Hongzhuang was even more certain that her judgment wasn't wrong. The outcome was indeed as she had expected. On the opposite side of the martial arts stage there was another light screen. It was obvious that her opponent should have appeared from that light screen. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly moved forward and prepared to walk into the light screen. However, she realized that there was an invisible barrier blocking her from entering the light screen. There was no way for her to enter it. Looking at this, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't continue to try. It seemed that the cultivator on the opposite side hadn't appeared yet. That was why she couldn't enter the light screen. Since that was the case, Bailey Hongzhuang directly found a place to cultivate at the side. Everyone's speed was different. If they needed to break through or treat their injuries midway, their time would naturally be delayed. However, as Bailey Hongzhuang cultivated here, she realized that the elemental energy here was extremely dense. It was very beneficial for a cultivator's cultivation. Previously, our colors were divided according to strength. I think my opponent should be the successor of another power. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly thought and said. Previously, when those light circles appeared, she had paid special attention to them. It was obviously related to strength. Thinking about it, Long Xianjing was the second strongest existence in Limitless Palace. The person he met should be the second strongest cultivator. If Yu Linfeng knew about Bailey Hongzhuang's guess, he would be surprised to find that Bailey Hongzhuang's guess was shockingly accurate. Thinking of this, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately began to cultivate. If the other party was a guy like Ouyang Yitian, it would be really difficult for her to deal with him with her strength. She had to work hard to raise her strength by another level. This way she would have more confidence in battle. Fortunately, Lan Qingyan was not here. She could use the power of the Rainbow God Pearl. With her various tricks and the cooperation of the three beasts, it would not be a problem for her to fight someone of a higher level. Of course, this also depended on how much stronger the other party was compared to her. If he was too strong, she could only fight with her life on the line. After Bailey Hongzhuang's reminder, the three beasts also understood that the battle they were about to face was not simple. Immediately, they also worked hard to cultivate. The next day, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly felt a wave coming from the light screen door. She saw that the light screen door that was originally shining with red light suddenly had ripples like water. Taking a closer look, the light screen door on the opposite side also had the same ripples. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately understood. It seemed that the opponent had arrived. Chapter 24:12. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly got up and walked towards the door of the light screen. The three beasts followed closely behind her. In this kind of battle, contracted beasts were the default existence. As expected, Bailey Hongzhuang smoothly walked through the door of the light screen, and the figure on the other side gradually revealed itself. Bailey Hongzhuang did not recognize the other party, but her sharp eyes saw the other party's identity card. Wang Yujing of the Wang family. The Wang family was also an aristocratic family of cultivators. They were not weak, but Bailey Hongzhuang had never come into contact with anyone from the Wang family. This Wang Yujing in front of her was obviously the successor of the Wang family. Bailey Hongzhuang sized him up slightly and knew that the other party's strength was not simple. After Wang Yujing saw Bailey Hongzhuang, he was obviously shocked. He had some understanding of the successors of various large forces, but he was completely unfamiliar with this woman in front of him. After exiting the door of the light screen, they arrived at the tournament stage. The two figures immediately appeared on the tournament stage. At this moment, a red ripple appeared between Bailey Hongzhuang and Wang Yujing. There was a row of words written on the ripple. Tournament rules. The winner will obtain the other party's identity card, but cannot take the other party's life. The loser will leave, and the winner will continue to wait. Concise and comprehensive, it also told Bailey Hongzhuang and Wang Yujing that this tournament was imperative. Looks like this is an elimination round. After Wang Yujing saw the small words, he could not help but chuckle. Even if he did not understand what was going on previously, he should have understood after seeing this. A light of understanding flashed across Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes. Obviously, the winner would stay here and fight with the other winners on the tournament stage. Once they lost, they would probably leave this underground tunnel. Cultivators would use this method to obtain the identity card, but they would not lose their lives. This was an excellent guarantee. However, Bailey Hongzhuang did not know that this rule only existed among the heirs. It did not exist among ordinary cultivators. Since the reward for this competition is to obtain an identity card, I wonder what the outcome would be if it was someone who had already lost their identity card? Bailey Hongzhuang muttered to herself. Lan Qingyan's identity card had already fallen into her hands. As such, what could Lan Qingyan use to participate in the competition? If she didn't have an identity token, then wouldn't the other party gain nothing from defeating her? Wang Yujing was obviously not in a hurry to fight. They needed to figure out the situation first. If you don't have an identity token, you shouldn't be qualified to participate in the competition, Wang Yujing said slowly. This kind of competition is fair. Since they will leave once they lose, those without identity cards should have already determined that they will lose from the very beginning. They should not have come here at all. Although he didn't know the real answer, Wang Yujing was extremely certain when he said this sentence. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. That's possible. If it was really like this, then what would happen to Lan Qingyan after she entered this underground tunnel? In fact, Lan Qingyan was also extremely depressed. She had been walking nonstop, and this tunnel seemed to have no end. It was simply exhausting all of her patience. Chapter 24:13. In a short period of time, Bailey Hongzhuang and Wang Yujing had already understood everything. This place was to give them a fair chance to fight. Putting aside many uncertain factors, there would definitely not be a third party in this battle. They also didn't have to worry about the situation of the mantis stalking the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. It could be said that this place allowed the cultivators to display their full strength. I'm the Wang clan's young master, Wang Yujing. May I know who you are? Wang Yujing sized up Bailey Hongzhuang for a moment. Although he already knew that Bailey Hongzhuang's name, and that she was from Limitless Palace from her identity tablet, he didn't know what was her identity in Limitless Palace. In the previous few battle for supremacy, Limitless Palace had sent their disciples to participate. However, when he saw that Bailey Hongzhuang had an extraordinary bearing, he had some doubts in his heart. I'm Limitless Palace's young palace master, Bailey Hongzhuang. Nice to meet you. Bailey Hongzhuang also knew the deeper meaning behind Wang Yujing's question. Although they were about to be opponents, there was no enmity between Limitless Palace and Wang clan. Therefore, she was very polite when she spoke. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's answer, Wang Yujing couldn't help but be surprised. After that, he revealed a look of understanding. So that's the case. Sorry for the disrespect. Wang Yujing cupped his hands and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a brighter gaze. He didn't expect Limitless Palace's young palace master to be such a beauty. It was really unexpected. Young Palace Master Bailey, since we're already at this stage, why don't we exchange some pointers? Please. In the next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang and Wang Yujing seemed to be in a fighting stance at the same time. They weren't people who liked to waste time. Now that all the arrangements were made, there was no meaning in wasting time here. The winner still needed to continue, and the loser should leave this place. The three beasties took advantage of the situation and stood behind Bailey Hongzhuang. This was also a chance for them to perform. Their master's age meant that they were at a disadvantage in this battle, so they had to do their best. After all, this was the first time Master had appeared in front of everyone as the young palace master. If he performed well, his reputation would undoubtedly be much better. Wang Yujing also had his own contracted beast. It was a Utilion with red fur all over its body. It was huge and had a majestic aura. Normally, this U-tiger was Wang Yujing's mount. No matter where it went, it would always attract the attention and envy of many people. Yu Hushi also came up behind Wang Yujing. But when Wang Yujing saw the three contracted beasts behind Bailey Hongzhuang, he couldn't help but look surprised. The white demonic beast seemed to be quite capable. Although it wasn't as impressive as Yu Hushi, he could tell that it wasn't simple. However, why did Bailey Hongzhuang bring the other two little fellows that looked like pets? The most important thing was that every cultivator only had one contract beast. What was the use of Bailey Hongzhuang having two more? This situation was a little strange. However, Wang Yujing didn't take it to heart. As the young master of the Wang family, he had seen many people and things. Many people would have some strange fetishes. Although this action seemed a little strange, it wasn't that hard to accept. Chapter 24:14. The battle broke out in an instant. Wang Yujing and Bailey Hongzhuang's origin energy surged out of their bodies, and a surging aura spread out. Blue Realm Level 5. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately determined Wang Yujing's cultivation level, but the result was undoubtedly much better than she had expected. She was worried that Wang Yujing was at Blue Realm Level 7 like Lan Qingyan and the others. If that was the case, the situation would be a little difficult. When she was fighting with Lan Qingyan, she immediately used her strongest move. Because the gap between their cultivation levels was too big, if it wasn't for Bai Shi's sneak attack, it would have been very difficult for her to defeat Lan Qingyan. If Wang Yujing had also reached Blue Realm Level 7, it would be equally difficult for her to win. However, since he was at Blue Realm Level 5, it would be much easier. Thinking of this, Bailey Hongzhuang's whole body relaxed a bit. After all, there were strong and weak cultivators participating in the Battle of Zhualu. Lan Qingyan and the others were considered to be extremely powerful among the many teams in the Battle of Zhualu. When Wang Yujing felt that Bailey Hongzhuang's cultivation was only at the third level of the Blue Realm, his whole body relaxed, and his eyes were filled with a smile. Previously, he thought that Bailey Hongzhuang looked very young, so he was afraid that her strength wouldn't be very strong. Blue Realm Level 3. This battle was definitely going to be a win. Bailey Hongzhuang took a step forward and without a word, the energy of the blood aura field exploded. The blood aura field was the most effective in a battle of a higher level. Moreover, Wang Yujing's strength was only 2 levels higher than hers. It was not difficult for her to suppress him. Wang Yujing, who was originally very happy, changed his expression when he saw the blood aura field. He was filled with indescribable shock and astonishment. Boom! Wang Yujing felt as if a mountain was pressing down on him. In a short moment, his strength had been forcibly suppressed to Blue Realm Level 3, the same cultivation level as Bailey Hongzhuang. Wang Yujing couldn't help but be slightly flabbergasted when she saw this. The advantage in cultivation actually vanished just like that? Bailey Hongzhuang did not give Wang Yujing any time to be stunned. Her figure flashed, and her right hand clenched into a fist. She struck out fiercely at Wang Yujing. Bang! Wang Yujing also punched out to block Bailey Hongzhuang. However, when Wang Yujing's fist came into contact with Bailey Hongzhuang's fist, the ominous feeling in his heart intensified. A heart-wrenching pain came from his right hand. It was as if a flame had burned his arm, and it continued to burn along the wound. This was the first time that Bailey Hongzhuang used the power of the icy cold fire. She only felt that when she was fighting, using the icy cold fire to wrap her fist was undoubtedly a very convenient way of fighting. Wang Yujing quickly retreated a few steps. When he saw the wound on his hand, the way he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang changed. He underestimated Bailey Hongzhuang. Even though this woman's cultivation level was only Blue Realm level 3, her trump card was really amazing. The blood aura field was something that none of the heirs except for Di Beichen had. He did not expect that there was a second person who had it now. The icy cold fire was also an extremely precious treasure. Even as the heir of the Wang clan, he did not have the ability to own it. Bailey Hongzhuang had actually obtained it at such a young age. Could it be? Wuji Palace's foundation was so powerful. Chapter 24:15. Bailey Hongzhuang wanted to end the battle as soon as possible. No one knew when the next battle would end. Hence, the sooner she finished this battle, the more time she would have to recover her battle strength. Wang Yujing saw how quick Bailey Hongzhuang's attacks were, and did not dare to be negligent. Bailey Hongzhuang's battle strength was clearly much stronger than her cultivation. He had been blinded by this fact from the start. If he still dared to underestimate her now, he would be digging his own grave. While Bailey Hongzhuang was pursuing her victory, the three beasts were lazily watching Yu Hushi in front of them. Xiao He glanced at Yu Hushi lazily, then turned to Baishi and said, Baishi, you should be able to deal with this kind of trash in a matter of minutes, right? Baishi nodded, his expression filled with disdain. It's a piece of cake. In the next moment, the white lion's roar rang out. Roar! The roar of a beast king caused Yu Hushi's body to tremble uncontrollably. He prostrated himself on the ground as if he was worshipping the beast king. In front of the beast king, no matter how awe-inspiring he usually was, he could only bow his head in submission. He did not dare to even think of resisting. Baishi had no interest in teaching this fellow a lesson. He waved his hand and Yu Hushi crawled off the stage, trembling. Clearly, he had lost the right to fight. Wang Yujing could not help but pay attention to the situation of his contracted beasts during the battle. Currently, he was slightly inferior in comparison to Bailey Hongzhuang. If Yu Hushi's battle had ended, he would be able to lend him a helping hand. However, Wang Yujing's gaze swept across the stage. When he did not see Yu Hushi's figure, he could not help but be dumbfounded. Has Yu Hushi disappeared? That's impossible. After taking a closer look, he realized that Yu Hushi had already appeared below the fighting ring. He was prostrating himself on the ground, and his huge body was still trembling. No matter how he looked at it, it was very strange. Naturally, Wang Yujing knew that only Yu Hushi would behave like this when he encountered a demonic beast of a much higher level than him. However, none of Bailey Hongzhuang's three contracted beasts seemed to be able to do this. No matter how doubtful Wang Yujing was, it was obvious that he could not get an answer at this time. Bang! Bailey Hongzhuang's attack once again landed on Wang Yujing's body. At the same time, the three beasts also appeared behind Bailey Hongzhuang. After seeing this scene, Wang Yujing also knew that he was no match for Bailey Hongzhuang. Even though he was very unwilling, there was nothing he could do. In the end, Wang Yujing chose to admit defeat. After all, since the outcome of the battle had already been decided, it would be meaningless to fight to the death here. Moreover, he didn't know what kind of situation he would encounter after leaving the martial arts stage. It was better for him to preserve some of his strength. Young Palace Master Bailey is indeed powerful. I admit defeat. A dejected look appeared on Wang Yujing's face. He had actually lost to a level 3 Blue Realm cultivator. If this news were to spread, he would be humiliated. Bailey Hongzhuang cupped his fists. Young Palace Master Wang, thank you for letting me win. Just as the victor was about to be decided, Wang Yujing's identity card was handed to Bailey Hongzhuang by an invisible force in the next moment. Chapter 24:16. Without the identity card, Wang Yujing's figure almost disappeared in the next moment in front of Bailey Hongzhuang. At the same time, Bailey Hongzhuang returned to the light screen. However, the situation in front of her changed again. In Bailey Hongzhuang's line of sight, a brand new passage suddenly appeared, apparently guiding Bailey Hongzhuang to continue moving forward. It seems that it's leading me to my next opponent. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips slowly curved into a playful smile. The layout of this Shuolu battle was really interesting. However, she didn't know where Wang Yujing would go after she failed. Would she continue to walk in this path, or would she appear on the surface? Bailey Hongzhuang didn't know what the arrangement was, nor did she know when she would be able to meet up with the other cultivators in the team. She thought that they were going through the same battle. She could only hope that everyone would do well. This path was much shorter than the one Bailey Hongzhuang had taken before. After walking for about an hour, Bailey Hongzhuang saw another red light screen. However, the light screen was currently closed, and her next opponent had yet to arrive. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang sat down with her legs crossed and started to rest. Although she wasn't injured in the previous battle, she had used up some of her primary energy. After this battle, Bailey Hongzhuang understood that with her current strength, she should be able to deal with cultivators of Blue Realm level 5 to level 6. As for those of Blue Realm level 7, she would have to give it her all if she wanted to win. The final result was uncertain. However, Bailey Hongzhuang had always thought that since she was already here, she might as well take things as they came. He would go as far as he could go. He did not have to go all the way to the last step. At least, she was sure that she was in the middle among the heirs. She wouldn't be at the bottom. What happened next was just as Bailey Hongzhuang expected. After resting for a day, her opponent appeared again. After she won again and received an identity badge, she walked into a new path and began her next journey. As the number of battles increased, Bailey Hongzhuang realized that her opponent's strength was increasing. First, Wang Yujing was the weakest. As her opponent's strength increased, Bailey Hongzhuang's battle became more and more difficult. Every heir had their own powerful trump card. Bailey Hongzhuang had also seen many powerful moves in the process of fighting, and her trump cards were also constantly displayed. The three beasts also helped Bailey Hongzhuang a lot. Her opponent's contract beasts were often defeated by White Lion. Xiao He and Xiao Bai were responsible for creating a diversion, so that her opponent wouldn't be able to guard. Under such circumstances, Bailey Hongzhuang could be said to have defeated all her opponents. Comparing notes with the strong, Bailey Hongzhuang had also gained a lot. As her potential was stimulated again and again, Bailey Hongzhuang's cultivation level directly broke through to level 4 of Blue Realm. Bailey Hongzhuang was already struggling with her strength at level 3 of Blue Realm. However, after her breakthrough and the increase in her combat power, she continued to hold on. Chapter 24:17. After obtaining 10 identity badges in this battle, Bailey Hongzhuang had many wounds on her body. The opponents she encountered were getting stronger and stronger. She had to give her all in every battle, so naturally, her injuries were piled on top of her injuries. However, throughout this process, her coordination with the three beasts had also improved. Fortunately, as a cultivator's power increases, the amount of time they could rest in between battles would also increase. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the identity badges she had obtained. She had obtained a total of 10 identity badges in this battle. In addition to the 2 identity badges she had obtained previously, she now had a total of 12 identity badges. She believed that her gains were considered to be rather good. She was aware of her own limitations in the following battles, and knew that her chances of winning were very slim. This was because she had already given her all in the 10th battle, and had won by a narrow margin. The opponent in the next round would definitely be much stronger than the previous one. It was almost impossible for her to win by luck. However, Bailey Hongzhuang did not intend to admit defeat without a fight, so she intended to give her all in this battle. As for how far she could go, it would depend on her own luck. Anyway, This battle would not take anyone's life. She would take it as a chance for her to learn from each other and understand her opponent's power. Master, the door of the light screen has opened. While Bailey Hongzhuang was cultivating, the three beasts noticed the ripples in the door of the light screen and could not help but remind her. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang exited her cultivation state. She looked at the flickering door of the light screen and composed herself. What will come will come. Let's go in. The three beasts nodded and immediately followed Bailey Hongzhuang into the light screen. However, when Bailey Hongzhuang saw the person who had walked out of the light screen, she was completely stunned. Then, a surprised and excited smile appeared on her devastatingly beautiful face. She never thought that she would meet someone whom she had not met outside in this battle arena. When Di Beichen saw Bailey Hongzhuang, his handsome face was filled with joy as well. Wife, I haven't seen you in so long. I've missed you so much. Di Beichen's lips curved into a devilish smile. His long and narrow eyes slightly raised, revealing a bit of teasing and love. Upon closer inspection, one could see the seriousness in his eyes. Since Bailey Hongzhuang left the assessment competition and stayed in Tiangang sect to cultivate, Di Beichen had been accompanying Bailey Hongzhuang all the time. They had not been separated for such a long time. Hearing Di Beichen's cynical words, Bailey Hongzhuang wrinkled her nose and glanced at Di Beichen. But her eyes were shining with a bright smile. You've been talking nonsense ever since you arrived. Di Beichen chuckled and walked slowly to Bailey Hongzhuang. Isn't that because my wife is too beautiful? Bailey Hongzhuang's cheeks flushed red. Faced with Di Beichen's praise, she was shy and did not know what to say. I'm not going to talk nonsense with you. This guy was always able to say these words like a gentleman. She was completely convinced. Di Beichen reached out and pulled Bailey Hongzhuang into his arms. Wife, tell me, have you missed your husband during this time? Bailey Hongzhuang pouted and pretended to be disdainful. I'm too lazy to miss you. Are you telling the truth? Di Beichen stared at Bailey Hongzhuang's limpid eyes. You really didn't miss me? Chapter 24:18. When she said this, Bailey Hongzhuang turned her eyes away with a guilty conscience. Ever since the Battle of the Deer, she had been hoping to meet up with Di Beichen as soon as possible. Unfortunately, they had been arranged to be far away from each other, and she had never had the chance to meet up. For so long, Di Beichen had been by her side every day, and she had long gotten used to it. Now that they had been apart for such a long time, she really felt that something was missing. However, she did not want to admit it at a time like this. Otherwise, Di Beichen would be even more pleased with himself. My wife, you don't miss me? Di Beichen frowned and pretended to be displeased. You should be punished. Before Bailey Hongzhuang could react to Di Beichen's sudden words, Di Beichen's kiss had already landed on her lips. He tossed and turned, indulging in her sweetness. As if to punish Bailey Hongzhuang for her dishonesty, Di Beichen's kiss was less gentle and more domineering and punishing. He kissed her fiercely. He had missed the person in front of him so much these past few days, and this little one actually dared to not miss him? This would not do. Bailey Hongzhuang pushed her hands against Di Beichen's chest but realized that it was useless. That was because the man's hands were too strong and she had no way of resisting. She could only endure everything with a red face. The three beasts who had been prepared to go all out had already covered their eyes with their paws. However, they still peeked through the gaps. Di Beichen is really too much. He always catches me off guard like this. I'm going to grow a needle's eye. Little Black covered its eyes and stomped its feet. Its white fur had now turned completely pink. It was bright red. Then why are you still peeking? Xiao Bai glanced at Xiao He. Every time, Xiao He would mutter to herself while sneaking glances at her. Look at how popular you are now. Upon hearing this, Xiao He glared at Xiao Bai. How are you any better than me? You're not usually so dark. How dare you say you're not popular? Both of you are the same. White Lion glanced at the two of them. Be quiet or master will find out. After Di Beichen let go of Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but gasp for air. At the same time, She looked at the person who was laughing in front of her with shame and indignation. Di Beichen. Good girl. Di Beichen blinked. Facing the embarrassed Bailey Hongzhuang, he felt even more tender affection for her. Bailey Hongzhuang was completely speechless. This fellow's skin was indeed as thick as the city walls. The moment she turned around, Bailey Hongzhuang saw Xiaohei, who had turned completely pink. The shame and indignation in her heart grew even stronger. Where was her prestige as the master of this place? Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang turn around, the three beasties were so scared that they quivered. They quickly turned around and lowered their heads, facing the wall to reflect on themselves. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at this scene speechlessly. She was also helpless towards these three beasts. Division lowered his voice and chuckled softly. He pulled Bailey Hongzhuang's small hand and pulled her into his embrace. My wife, have you encountered any danger since the deer-chasing battle? These days, he had been worried about Bailey Hongzhuang's situation. Now that he saw that Bailey Hongzhuang was safe and sound, he could finally relax. Fortunately, I've managed to avert danger. Chapter 24:19. I met Lan Qingyan, Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. As soon as these words came out, Di Beichen's expression couldn't help but change. What happened? He knew that Bailey Hongzhuang hated Lan Qingyan, but he didn't expect the two to meet so soon. Once they met, it wouldn't end well. At that time I was refining elixirs. Lan Qingyan asked me to hand over the identity token and elixirs to them. Bailey Hongzhuang looked indifferent. After interacting with Lan Qingyan, she had a better understanding of Lan Qingyan, but she was even more disdainful of Lan Qingyan. She would definitely trample this kind of person under her feet. After the Battle of Zhuolu ended, she would gradually appear in front of the Lan family. Then you two fought. Di Beichen knew Bailey Hongzhuang's character very well. Even if it was someone else who said this to Bailey Hongzhuang would definitely not let it go. Moreover, this person was Lan Qingyan? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. That's right. Baisher is more powerful. He crippled one of Lan Qingyan's hands. Her identity token also fell into my hands. As she spoke, Bailey Hongzhuang took out Lan Qingyan's identity token. A smile appeared on her lips. Di Beichen was also stunned when he saw this identity token. He knew that Lan Qingyan's strength had probably reached the 7th level of the Blue Realm. However, Bailey Hongzhuang was actually able to obtain Lan Qingyan's identity token. This was a little too surprising. He was originally worried that Bailey Hongzhuang would be at a disadvantage after meeting Lan Qingyan. He didn't want Bailey Hongzhuang to be wronged, and he didn't want Bailey Hongzhuang to be wrong because of Lan Qingyan. All these years, Bailey Hongzhuang had suffered enough because of Lan Qingyan. However, he did not expect his wife to be so powerful. The first time she came into direct contact with Lan Qingyan, she had already snatched Lan Qingyan's identity token. I didn't expect my wife to be so powerful. Di Beichen gave Bailey Hongzhuang a thumbs up. His wife was really capable. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her chin proudly. Of course. It's been so many years. I'm no longer that helpless baby. It's time for things to change. As she spoke, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly thought of something and asked, Beichen, what is the relationship between Lan Qingyan and Ouyang Yitian? Ouyang Yitian? Di Beichen raised his eyebrows. The relationship between the Lan family and the Ouyang family has always been quite close. Ever since we caused a ruckus at the Yu family a few days ago, there has been some animosity between the Lan family and the Yu family. On the contrary, the Lan family is getting closer and closer to the Ouyang family. According to the information I received, Lan Qingyan and Ouyang Yitian are likely to become a family. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. So that's how it is. You met Ouyang Yitian. If it wasn't for Ouyang Yitian's appearance, Lan Qingyan would have died in my hands. Bailey Hongzhuang's ink-black phoenix eyes flashed with a cold light. Very quickly, she revealed a relieved expression. However, this is also good. Lan Qingyan can still be my stepping stone. Back then, Lan Qingyan had stepped on her body to become the future head of the Lan family. In a few days, she would step on Lan Qingyan's body to take back everything that belonged to her. Bailey Hongzhuang did not hide anything from Di Beichen. Instead, she told him everything that had happened. Chapter 24:20. After knowing that Mo Yunjue had once again helped Bailey Hongzhuang resolve the crisis, Di Beichen's eyes changed slightly, his expression unfathomable. It seems that I really should thank Mo Yunjue. Ever since the Yu clan's incident, Di Beichen no longer opposed Mo Yunjue as before. Instead, he admired him a little more. Di Beichen didn't admire many people in his life, and there were even fewer people of the same generation. However, Mo Yunjue was one of the people he admired. Because Mo Yunjue was a true gentleman. Even though Shurtian Tower was a hidden and dark existence in the eyes of many people, Mo Yunjue was indeed a true gentleman who acted openly and aboveboard. As a man himself, he was very clear about Mo Yunjue's feelings towards Bailey Hongzhuang. However, Mo Yunjue had never stepped in from the beginning to the end. Just this point alone was enough to make him admire him. With Mo Yunjue's level of excellence, if he also participated, he would probably be a formidable opponent. And now, he also respected the friendship between Bailey Hongzhuang and Mo Yunjue. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and nodded. If Yunjue didn't appear, then it would be a lot more troublesome. We have to thank him properly. Di Beichen touched Bailey Hongzhuang's head. His eyes slightly narrowed. Wife, Mo Yunjue is very good. But in your heart, you have to remember that I am the best. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but smile. That will depend on how you perform. Wife, don't worry, I will definitely perform well. Di Beichen patted his chest with a look of wife, just watch how I perform, which made Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but chuckle. The next moment, Di Beichen took the identity card from his waist and said, Wife, since you are here, I naturally have to present this identity card with both hands. For him, nothing was more important than Bailey Hongzhuang. Although this identity card was related to the results of Tiangang sect, he wanted to pamper Bailey Hongzhuang more. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichen's actions and couldn't help but be slightly stunned. A faint and charming smile appeared on her lips. Are you sure you want to give this identity card to me? Di Beichen blinked his charming eyes. My whole body belongs to you, not to mention this identity card. Looking at Di Beichen's funny look, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but laugh out loud. Di Beichen, you are really the most thick-skinned person I have ever seen. So I think I am the one you love the most. Di Beichen shrugged his shoulders. He was not ashamed but rather proud of it. Okay, you are right. Bailey Hongzhuang was helpless for a while, but many times because you like this person, no matter what he does, you will like it. Beichen, you should keep this identity card. Bailey Hongzhuang took her identity card. I will give you my identity card. Wife. Di Beichen frowned, but Bailey Hongzhuang's explanation followed. With my strength, I have already done my best to get to this point. If the opponent who appears now is not you, I am afraid I will fail in this game. If you give me the identity medallion, I will only fail in the next round of the competition. If you continue to challenge, you will be able to get more identity cards. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved into a bright and moving smile. She had absolute confidence in Di Beichen's strength. Even Ouyang Yitian would not be Di Beichen's opponent. Chapter 24:21. Bailey Hongzhuang's smile was mischievous as she smiled sweetly at Di Beichen. Di Beichen raised his brows and said, Please speak, my wife. I'm asking you to fight on my behalf and we'll split the rewards equally. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her chin and her expression was smug and arrogant. You have to return my identity token to me. Once she said this, Di Beichen's handsome and elegant face could not help but break into a brilliant smile, revealing his white and neat teeth. So I'm fighting on your behalf. What? You're not convinced? Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her eyes like a cat waiting for an opportunity to strike. As long as Di Beichen dared to say anything, she would immediately explode. Di Beichen quickly shook his head and stroked Bailey Hongzhuang's soft and silky hair affectionately. How would I dare? Since I'm fighting on your behalf, all the rewards naturally belong to my wife. My wife, just you wait, your husband will obtain a few more identity tokens for you. Bailey Hongzhuang's coquettishness was fatal to Di Beichen, and he was willing to do anything for her. However, he also knew that Bailey Hongzhuang had said this because she wanted him to accept the identity token without any psychological burden. Bailey Hongzhuang's words were very reasonable. It would be best if they could obtain as many identity tokens as possible. Based on the current time of the Battle of Zhuelu, even if he made it to the end, the Battle of Zhuelu should not be over yet. The Tiangang sect's reputation has long resounded throughout the mainland. Even if they did not perform well in this Battle of Zhuelu, it did not mean much. However, his wife wanted to use this opportunity to make a name for herself. As her husband, he naturally had to do his part. He wanted everyone to know that Bailey Hongzhuang was his woman. Bailey Hongzhuang was full of smiles. Good luck. I'll wait for you outside. Di Beichen reached out his hand and pulled Bailey Hongzhuang over, planting another kiss on her lips. We've just met and we're about to part again. I really can't bear to part with my wife. Bailey Hongzhuang puffed up her cheeks. She had always been bullied by Di Beichen's shameless actions. This was not in line with her character. In the next second, Bailey Hongzhuang stood on her tiptoe and pecked Di Beichen on the lips. I can't bear to part with you, humph. However, after doing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's back. Bailey Hongzhuang's back. Bailey, S's, she's, Bailey Hongzhuang, Bailey S. His, Hongzhuang's S and S's, her. Looks like I should hurry up and marry her. After Bailey Hongzhuang handed over her identity token, Bailey Hongzhuang felt a wave of energy wrap around her. Then she disappeared into the light screen. The three beasties were naturally with Bailey Hongzhuang. Previously, they were curious about where they would go if they failed. Now they understood. When Bailey Hongzhuang saw everything in front of her again, she realized that she was still underground. However, there was a small hall in front of her, and there was still a light screen in front of her. The light screen was currently in a closed state. It was obvious that it had not been opened. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but feel a little puzzled. Could it be that there would be another competition after she failed? Young Palace Master. Joyful voices rang out behind Bailey Hongzhuang. They sounded very familiar to Bailey Hongzhuang. Chapter 24-22. So everyone is here. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at everyone in surprise. She was still worried about how to meet up with everyone after leaving this place. She didn't expect to meet everyone the moment she came out. This gave her a pleasant surprise. When everyone saw that Bailey Hongzhuang had arrived, a smile appeared on their faces. It was as if they had seen a relative that they hadn't seen for a long time. The joy of reunion filled everyone's heart. Previously, when everyone walked into a different passage, everyone was a little afraid. After all, they didn't know what they were going to face next. They also didn't know when they would be able to reunite with their teammates. But now it seemed that they were worried for nothing. This underground arena had already arranged everything for them, so they didn't need to worry at all. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at everyone. Including her, there were a total of 8 cultivators. There were still 2 disciples who hadn't appeared. Long Xianjing noticed Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze and took the lead to explain. Young Palace Master, after we lost the competition, we came here. As time passed, more and more people gathered here. Hearing that, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. She immediately understood. It seems that everyone will come here after the competition. After saying that, Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze fell on the light screen. She was already very familiar with this light screen. Before they met the corresponding conditions, it was impossible for them to leave this light screen. Let's wait until everyone has gathered and then we can leave. Everyone nodded. They also felt that this should be the case. How's everyone's harvest? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled at everyone. The total number of identity cards that everyone obtained was the result of Limitless Palace. Everyone reported their results to Bailey Hongzhuang. Long Xianjing and the other disciples who were stronger naturally obtained more identity cards. As for the weaker disciples, they came out earlier. However, overall, Limitless Palace's results were still very good. However, during this process, Bailey Hongzhuang faintly felt that something was wrong. In that case, Yan Aoshuang was the third last to come out, Long Xianjing was the second last, and I was the last to come out? Everyone looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in confusion. Although they didn't know why Bailey Hongzhuang asked this question, they still nodded. It was indeed a good idea. As for the other two disciples, how many matches do you think they can last? The strength of the opponents encountered by the other disciples naturally couldn't be compared to the opponents encountered by Bailey Hongzhuang, but their strength was definitely not weak. If they hadn't come out by now, it meant that they had participated in the competition more times than Bailey Hongzhuang. This seemed a little strange. Hearing this, the expressions of Long Xianjing and the others changed. Their expressions became unsightly. Young Palace Master, what do you mean? Yan Aoshuang immediately understood and could not help but ask in a low voice. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't say anything. She just looked at everyone and found that everyone had the same expression. At this moment, White Lion's voice suddenly rang out. Master, the light screen is moving. Chapter 24-23. Looking at the movement on the light screen, everyone understood what was going on. It turned out that Bailey Hongzhuang was the last cultivator to come out. As for the other two who didn't come out, they probably wouldn't have the chance to come out again. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest looked at each other. This situation was undoubtedly something none of them wanted to see. Yan Aoshuang sighed. Participating in this competition is inherently dangerous. It's already good that so many of us can come out safely. They had already understood the risks of participating in the Battle of Zhuolu long before they came. Overall, their team's current situation was already much better than expected. Master, isn't it forbidden to take people's lives in this competition? Why would something like this happen? After seeing this scene, Xiaohei couldn't help but lower her voice and whisper into Bailey Hongzhuang's ear. Previously, when Master was fighting, her opponent had also fallen into danger. However, there was a wave of energy that protected them and brought them away. I'm afraid. The rules are different. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice could only be heard by the three beasts. She didn't want the other cultivators to know about this, as it would undoubtedly make them unhappy. To the various major powers, the loss that they couldn't bear was the death of their successor. As for the other cultivators, as long as the number didn't reach a certain level, it would be within the range that the major powers could bear. Therefore, if it didn't take lives, it should only be targeted at the successor. After hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the three beasts couldn't help but be stunned. However, they quickly understood what Bailey Hongzhuang meant. Speaking of which, this world was originally unfair. Most of the time, such rules were tacitly agreed. The cultivators of Limitless Palace all sighed. Their expressions revealed a hint of helplessness. A faint feeling of sadness lingered in their hearts. No matter what, they had been teammates for such a long time. They didn't expect that the previous separation would really be the last time they would see each other. It was inevitable that they would feel a little sad. Bailey Hongzhuang also felt a little sad in her heart. However, the previous situation had separated all of them. The rest of them were also helpless. As cultivators, they should be used to this kind of situation. Let's go out first, Bailey Hongzhuang suggested. Everyone was in good condition now, and their injuries were almost healed. Shi and Di Beichen didn't fight at all, so naturally they weren't injured. Since the door to the light screen had been open, they decided to go out and take a look. Everyone quickly collected their emotions. None of them knew what kind of danger they would encounter next, so they had to brace themselves to face everything that was about to come. Then, everyone walked out of the light screen door. When everyone walked out, they felt a burst of clamor that spread to their ears from all directions. Another team came out. Could it be Limitless Palace's team? Yo, this Limitless Palace's leading disciple is very beautiful. 8 left. That's not bad. Before Bailey Hongzhuang and the others could clearly see the situation in front of them, they heard many people talking about them. After taking a closer look, they realized that in front of them was an extremely large and bright hall. There were many teams of cultivators gathered in the hall. Chapter 24-24. This situation had obviously exceeded the expectations of all the cultivators in Limitless Palace. They originally thought that they would appear on land after exiting the light screen door. They did not expect that they would suddenly appear in a large hall. Moreover, there were more than 10 teams in front of them. This number was somewhat frightening. Bailey Hongzhuang swept her gaze around. Among these teams there were quite a number of people who had been defeated by her. It seemed that these people had gathered together after their defeat and came to this large hall together. In that case, wouldn't it mean that all the teams would appear in this large hall in the end? In a short moment, countless thoughts ran through Bailey Hongzhuang's mind as she pondered over the current situation. However, in the face of everyone's scrutiny and discussion, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest maintained their silence. They directly chose an empty space in the large hall and sat down. This large hall was extremely large, and the number of cultivators it could accommodate was also extremely shocking. Therefore, even though there were so many teams gathered in the large hall, it still appeared to be somewhat spacious. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest did not have the slightest bit of weakness. From the current situation, the teams that came out later were usually the strongest. At least, among the teams in front of them, they had enough to be proud. From the moment they appeared in this large hall to the moment they sat down, Bailey Hongzhuang felt a venomous gaze following her closely. Almost without looking, Bailey Hongzhuang knew who the owner of this gaze was. Thinking about it, among the teams in this battle for deer, only Lan Qingyan would be able to hate her so bitterly. Her line of sight turned. As expected, Lan Qingyan was fiercely glaring at Bailey Hongzhuang. As Bailey Hongzhuang turned her head, their gazes immediately collided. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly looking at her, Lan Qingyan was stunned at first. Then she fiercely glared back. Originally, she did not know what had happened. She thought that her own team being the first to arrive in this large hall was something to be happy about. However, when the other teams appeared one after another, she then understood the reason behind this. As it turned out, she did not even have the qualifications to participate in this competition. When had their Lan clan's team not achieved excellent results in the battle for deer vying? This time it was actually the last place. Moreover, with so many people gathered here, she couldn't deny it even if she wanted to. It was simply too embarrassing. She still remembered that when everyone first saw her, they were all surprised that she had lost an arm. They even had some doubts about her identity. This was simply infuriating. Bailey Hongzhuang was the mastermind behind all of this. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a mocking smile. She naturally knew about the situation that Lan Qingyan had encountered previously. It was truly wonderful. No wonder Lan Qingyan looked at him as if she couldn't wait to eat him up. To make such a high and mighty Lan Qingyan suddenly fall from her pedestal, this kind of feeling would indeed drive people crazy. However, she still hoped that Lan Qingyan's psychological quality would be better. Otherwise, there were many things that he hadn't done yet, and Lan Qingyan already couldn't take it and went crazy. Then there wouldn't be anything fun left. When Lan Qingyan noticed Bailey Hongzhuang's contemptuous gaze, she was about to explode in anger. This woman actually dared to mock her. She really wanted to tear this woman apart. Chapter 24-25. Bailey Hongzhuang naturally noticed that Ouyang Etienne's figure was not here. It seemed that Ouyang Etienne's strength was not bad. He had persisted until now and had not failed. Without Ouyang Etienne, with Lan Qingyan's current state, she was undoubtedly a soft persimmon. She did not need to care at all. Young Palace Master, is this the end of the Battle of Zhualu? Yin Aoshuang looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. This situation was somewhat different from what she had imagined. She had thought that this Battle of Zhualu would be abnormally dangerous. Although the things they had experienced before entering the underground passageway were indeed very dangerous. However, in the underground passageway it was completely a fair competition. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with a light of contemplation. Then she shook her head and said it shouldn't be. Right now, only half of the Battle of Zhualu has passed. The other teams that are still fighting will appear one by one. It definitely won't take half a month. I'm afraid that there will be other tests later. It's just that we don't know about them for now. Although she was not the founder of this Battle of Zhualu, Bailey Hongzhuang was still able to confirm this point based on her previous life's experience. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the Limitless Palace disciples, who were originally rather doubtful, nodded their heads. If this was really the case, then they would have to be ready for the next test at any time. Right now there are so many teams gathered here. Pull one hair and the whole body will be affected. No one will be the first to start a conflict. Everyone, rest assured and cultivate here for the time being. Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. If there were only a few teams here, then the possibility of a big fight was not small. But now that so many teams were gathered together, it was actually a lot safer. Not only that, from the moment Bailey Hongzhuang came to this hall, she felt that the elemental energy in this hall was very rich. It was the same as when they were cultivating in the passageway. This was undoubtedly a good opportunity to cultivate. As far as the eye could see, there were many groups of cultivators meditating and cultivating to pass this period of waiting. Pei Yifan and the others nodded. They were originally a little uncertain in their hearts, but after hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, they seemed to have found their backbone and no longer had to worry. As everyone began to cultivate, Bailey Hongzhuang also closed her eyes. Now that there were so many people here, he might as well cultivate properly and save himself some trouble. Hey, do you know the name of the female disciple leading the Limitless Palace this time? Her looks and temperament are heaven-defying. The gazes of many male cultivators landed on Bailey Hongzhuang. Previously, before Bailey Hongzhuang arrived, they had already sized up all the girls present. In the end, they were still certain that Bailey Hongzhuang was the most beautiful. In fact, Lan Qingyin's outstanding appearance was also well known. Although Lan Qingyin's broken arm had affected her beauty, her outstanding appearance still couldn't be ignored. However, after Bailey Hongzhuang appeared, everyone's gazes were immediately attracted to Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang was even better than Lan Qingyan. Everyone's eyes lit up. Most importantly, Lan Qingyan was the young mistress of the Lan family. They couldn't have any thoughts at all. However, Bailey Hongzhuang was only a disciple of Limitless Palace. They had hope. Chapter 24-26. When Wang Yujing heard some people's discussion about Bailey Hongzhuang, he immediately revealed Bailey Hongzhuang's identity. Although he lost to Bailey Hongzhuang, he only admired Bailey Hongzhuang and did not resent her. With Wang Yujing's words, all the cultivators who had been discussing stopped. Their gazes all landed on Wang Yujing, and their eyes were filled with surprise. Since when did Limitless Palace have a young palace master? Is what you said true? Wang Yujing nodded. I was defeated by her. What do you think? Once these words came out, the crowd no longer doubted him. As the young master of the Wang clan, Wang Yujing naturally would not joke about such matters. What's more, he was defeated by Bailey Hongzhuang. If Bailey Hongzhuang was not the young palace master of Limitless Palace, Wang Yujing would not have been defeated by her. I didn't expect Limitless Palace to have a young palace master. Young Master Wang, if you didn't tell us, I'm afraid something bad would have happened. Hearing this, the crowd's expression changed slightly. Although these words were unpleasant to hear, it was undeniable that it was the truth. Bailey Hongzhuang naturally heard the crowd's discussion. Originally, she planned to reveal her identity directly to avoid trouble. She did not expect Wang Yujing to help her solve this problem. It seemed that although Wang Yujing's strength was not strong enough, his character was still quite good. In the past, she had experienced this kind of trouble. However, when her appearance and identity matched, there were fewer people who dared to continue provoking her. Lan Qingyan's appearance had also inherited the Lan clan's excellent genes. However, Bailey Hongzhuang could guarantee that Lan Qingyan had never been harassed like this before. This was the influence brought about by status and power. Lan Qingyan, who was already extremely unhappy, became even more unhappy after hearing the crowd's discussion. This Bailey Hongzhuang actually stole all the limelight. She originally planned to perform well in this battle of vying for the throne. However, she did not expect to get off on the wrong foot and let Bailey Hongzhuang gain the upper hand. After this battle of vying for the throne was over, Bailey Hongzhuang's name would probably become famous. When that time came, It would be even more difficult for her to deal with Bailey Hongzhuang. Thinking of this, Lan Qingyin's gaze could not help but fall on Baisher, who was beside Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang's strength was not enough to injure Lan Qingyan. If not for this damned contract, Bailey Hongzhuang would have died by her hands, by Lan Qingyan. Baisher glanced at Lan Qingyan lazily. There was only one thought in its mind, and that was to bite Lan Qingyan's head off the next time. Then this fellow would not be so annoying. Usually everyone would be cultivating in silence. Only when a new team appeared would everyone pay more attention. Now that more than half of the teams had come out, the remaining teams would come out one after another in the next few days. The next day, when Bailey Hongzhuang was cultivating, the quiet main hall suddenly erupted with a burst of discussion. Look, isn't that Ouyang Etian? The Ouyang clan's cultivators have also come out. I heard that Ouyang Etian's cultivation has reached level 7 of the Blue Realm. Since he has come out, I'm afraid it will be over soon. Chapter 24-27. Lan Qingyan, who had been in a bad mood for a long time, felt a lot better after seeing Ouyang Etian. Over the past few days, although there were a few cultivators she had interacted with on a daily basis, she could always feel their curiosity and schadenfreude when they saw how serious her injuries were. She had always been a proud peacock. How could she endure other people's schadenfreude? Even if they didn't show it directly, it was still something she couldn't bear. On the contrary, Ouyang Etian was different. Ouyang Etian understood the whole story, so she didn't have to worry about Ouyang Etian having such emotions. Qingyan. Ouyang Etian smiled after seeing Lan Qingyan. He was really worried about Lan Qingyan before, but now that he saw that Lan Qingyan was safe and sound, he was relieved. Although Lan Qingyan's right hand couldn't grow out now, it could still recover after returning to the Lan family. Etian. At this moment, Lan Qingyan saw Ouyang Etian as if she had seen a relative, so even this form of address became a bit intimate. Feeling the change in Lan Qingyan, Ouyang Etian was surprised and happy at the same time. It seemed that the best effect could only be achieved when a woman needed comfort. In the past, he had never enjoyed such treatment from Lan Qingyan. The other cultivators also changed their expressions after seeing the intimacy between Lan Qingyan and Ouyang Etian. The strength of the Lan family and the Ouyang family was not weak. If these two families were united by marriage, their strength would increase again. For the major forces, the alliance between two forces could cause some subtle changes, so they had to pay more attention to it. Judging from the expressions of the two, this marriage was most likely inevitable. Qingyan, how have you been these days? Ouyang Etian asked Lan Qingyan's situation with concern. Young palace master, Ouyang Etian has appeared. Lan Qingyan's arrogance has risen again. I'm afraid they will come looking for trouble. After seeing this scene not far away, Yin Aoshuang couldn't help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly, inexplicably making people believe in her. Don't worry, there are so many people here. Even if they want to make a move, they have to think twice. What's more, I have something on Lan Qingyan. The disciples of Limitless Palace were a little worried, but after seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's indifferent appearance, they were relieved. Previously, they also saw the young palace master force a medicinal pill into Lan Qingyan's mouth. Couldn't be a good thing. Bailey Hongzhuang then closed her eyes to cultivate. The current situation was different from when she was on the ground, so she didn't have to be too worried. Hey look, that Lan Qingyan and Ouyang Etian are walking towards the direction of the Limitless Palace cultivators. After seeing Lan Qingyan and Ouyang Etian's actions, a cultivator's voice. Chapter 24-28. The disciples of Limitless Palace withdrew from their cultivation state and glared at Lan Qingyan in front of them. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly opened her eyes. She looked at the aggressive Lan Qingyan in front of her, but she still had the appearance of a calm cloud. Lan Qingyan, now that your helper is here, are you looking for trouble again? As soon as she opened her mouth, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't hold back and directly gave her a resounding slap. Yesterday Lan Qingyan didn't dare to look for trouble. Today, she relied on Ouyang Etienne's appearance and dared to look for her. Wasn't this because she didn't have the confidence? When the surrounding cultivators saw that Bailey Hongzhuang and Lan Qingyan were so angry when they met, they were all stunned. It seemed that this conflict was bigger than they thought. Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's sarcasm, Lan Qingyan's face turned green and white. Unfortunately, she was powerless to refute. It was really infuriating. Bailey Hongzhuang, stop talking nonsense. What did you feed me just now? Quickly hand over the antidote. Otherwise, I'll let your entire team die here. Currently, there were only 8 disciples of Limitless Palace left. The Lan clan's cultivators were all here because they didn't have the qualifications to participate in the competition. In addition to the Ouyang clan's cultivators, this number was really not small. However, in the face of Lan Qingyan's threat, Bailey Hongzhuang only sneered. Your threat is useless against me. Previously, you also said that you would kill me. Wasn't the one who ended it decisively with your own hand? Looking at the furious face in front of her, the sarcasm in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes deepened. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the crowd couldn't help but gasp. Almost everyone was secretly guessing who broke Lan Qingyan's hand. However, no one thought that it was related to Limitless Palace's young palace master. Before this battle of Zhualu, they didn't even know that Limitless Palace had a young palace master. Even though they had seen Bailey Hongzhuang yesterday, everyone still had doubts about her strength. After all, Bailey Hongzhuang's age was really young and her qualifications were shallow, so many people did not take her seriously. However, after knowing that Bailey Hongzhuang had broken Lan Qingyan's hand, the situation had changed. They weren't clear about Bailey Hongzhuang's strength, but they were very clear about Lan Qingyan's strength. The fact that Lan Qingyan could suffer such a huge loss in the hands of Bailey Hongzhuang was enough to prove how strong Bailey Hongzhuang was. What's more, after Bailey Hongzhuang appeared yesterday, Lan Qingyan didn't dare to make any moves. It was only until Ouyang Etienne appeared that Lan Qingyan dared to find trouble. Who was strong and who was weak could be seen at a glance. Suddenly, no one dared to underestimate Bailey Hongzhuang. It seemed that Limitless Palace's young palace master had the same temperament as Limitless Palace's palace master. Thinking back, Yu Linfeng was also an unknown person. However, no one expected that once he appeared, he could no longer be ignored. Obviously, Bailey Hongzhuang was also such a person. After Lan Qingyan and Ouyang Etienne felt the change in the attitude of the other cultivators, their faces turned ugly. Almost at the first moment when everyone exclaimed, they already understood that Bailey Hongzhuang was using them as stepping stones. She wanted to use their reputation to make her name known. Chapter 24-29. The cultivators of Limitless Palace instantly felt the change in the other people's view of them. They couldn't help but admire Bailey Hongzhuang in their hearts. Young palace master's methods were really amazing. In this short period of time, everyone knew that Lan Qingyan was defeated by young palace master. Moreover, she lost miserably. Truly mighty and domineering. After Ouyang Etienne saw that Lan Qingyan was so weak in front of Bailey Hongzhuang, he couldn't help but say, Bailey Hongzhuang, quickly hand over the antidote. He didn't want to let others see him as a joke for no reason. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled, but the curve of her lips revealed a bit of coldness. You want me to hand it over and I'll hand it over? If I want you to die, you'll die? Even if they really fought, she wouldn't shrink back. What's more, the other party was just clamoring. It would be strange if she paid attention to it. Bailey Hongzhuang, don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Ouyang Etienne was also angry. These words jumped out of his mouth one after another. Less nonsense. If you dare to make a move on me here, I don't mind fighting to the death with you. Unless Lan Qingyan doesn't want to live anymore. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips slightly raised, revealing a bright and charming smile. The reason why she could be fearless was naturally because she had enough confidence. Lan Qingyan's heart was also depressed. She didn't know what Bailey Hongzhuang gave her to eat. From the moment she ate it until now, there was no reaction. Sometimes she even suspected that what Bailey Hongzhuang gave her to eat was a useless elixir. She just wanted to use this method to make her afraid. However, she was really worried. If it was really poison, then wouldn't she be in trouble? Lan Qingyan still had a great future. She absolutely couldn't lose her life like this. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's fearless and unyielding attitude, Lan Qingyan and Ouyang Yitian glanced at each other with a gloomy face. Bailey Hongzhuang's reaction was not beyond their expectations. However, they had also thought of a way to deal with it. The next moment, Ouyang Yitian's voice resounded throughout the hall. Heroes, this is a private matter between us and Limitless Palace. I hope that no matter what happens next, everyone will not interfere. My Ouyang clan and Lan clan will definitely remember everyone's help at this moment. As soon as he said that, the expressions of the cultivators present changed a little, but no one said anything. Although Limitless Palace's strength wasn't weak, it had only been established for a short period of time. Regardless of background or influence, it couldn't be compared to the Lan family and Ouyang family. Offending these two great clans for the sake of Limitless Palace was undoubtedly not a good deal. Everyone present was smart. As long as they didn't have a strong relationship with Limitless Palace, they wouldn't stand out at this moment. It seems like the Ouyang family and Lan family are preparing to join forces to deal with Limitless Palace. I'm afraid Limitless Palace's team is in trouble. Everyone's eyes fell on Bailey Hongzhuang's body. 2 against 1, the result could be determined without even looking. The cultivators of Limitless Palace were also nervous. If they were to fight here and the other forces didn't care, they would be in trouble. Chapter 24:30. Lan Qingyan looked at Bailey Hongzhuang proudly. She wanted to see who else could help Bailey Hongzhuang. She didn't believe that Mo Yunjua would appear so coincidentally this time. Bailey Hongzhuang, if you don't hand over the antidote now, I will make your entire team disappear. Lan Qingyan's eyes were malicious and resentful. She had already thought it through. As long as Bailey Hongzhuang handed over the antidote, she would take Bailey Hongzhuang's life at the first opportunity. She would never allow Bailey Hongzhuang to continue living in this world. Ouyang Yitian also looked at Bailey Hongzhuang coldly. At this point, Bailey Hongzhuang had no other choice. However, from the beginning to the end, Bailey Hongzhuang only looked at Lan Qingyan indifferently and turned a deaf ear to her threats. She was very clear that as long as she didn't hand over the antidote, both sides would be tied. The advantage on the surface was not much of an advantage. Even if the other teams didn't make a move, what could they do? Could they torture her in front of everyone here? They couldn't do it, so they couldn't win. Moreover, this poison was originally specially prepared for Lan Qingyan. It was to let Lan Qingyan have a taste of pain. How could she make an antidote? That was something she didn't need, okay? However, her poison had an incubation period. It would only explode after the Battle of Zhuolu ended. At this moment, a voice that surprised everyone suddenly rang out. Young Lord Lan has such a big temper, making the entire team disappear at the slightest provocation. But I'm afraid it's not as simple as you said, right? Shangguan Yingying saw Lan Qingyan's hooting as soon as she came out, and her heart was already filled with dissatisfaction. As a woman, Shangguan Yingying understood Lan Qingyan very well. Although they weren't very familiar with each other, she couldn't stand Lan Qingyan's behavior. In this Shangxian continent, there were many capable cultivators, but Lan Qingyan was so arrogant. She felt unhappy just looking at her. Most importantly, when she saw that the person Lan Qingyan was threatening was Bailey Hongzhuang, she couldn't stand it anymore. What a joke. Di Beichen wasn't here, so it wasn't Lan Qingyan's turn to bully Hongzhuang. When Ziren was helpless when he saw his wife's temper rise again. But after seeing that the person Lan Qingyan was threatening was Bailey Hongzhuang, his temper also rose. Hongzhuang was his good brother's wife. How could he let her be bullied by others? Lan Qingyan turned around and saw the aggressive Shangguan Yingying. Her expression changed. She also didn't have a good impression of Shangguan Yingying. Usually they just didn't like each other. She didn't expect Shangguan Yingying to take the initiative to mess things up. Shangguan Yingying, this is our business. We don't need you to interfere. Lan Qingyan said coldly. She was already confident of victory, but now another person appeared to disrupt the situation. She didn't want any more changes. The other force's expressions became more interesting when they saw Cloud Sword Sect, who had just appeared from the light screen, start to disrupt the situation. Is there any conflict between Cloud Sword Sect and Lan family? There doesn't seem to be any conflict. It's just that Lan Qingyan and Shangguan Yingying don't see eye to eye. But they haven't had any conflicts before. What's going on today? Chapter 2431. When Bailey Hongzhuang saw Shangguan Yingying and when Xiren suddenly appear, she was also a little surprised, but then a smile appeared on her face. When Xiren and Shangguan Yingying were good friends of Di Beichun who grew up together, she also regarded these two as good friends. Although everyone was too busy a few days ago and didn't have much time to get together, this friendship existed. Shangguan Yingying winked at Bailey Hongzhuang mischievously. Her impression of Bailey Hongzhuang had always been good, but previously everyone was preparing for the Battle of Zhualu, so she didn't have time to go to Tiangang sect. What do you mean this is your business? Shangguan Yingying looked at Lan Qingyan with dissatisfaction. Hongzhuang is my good friend. Her business is my business. As soon as Shangguan Yingying finished speaking, the surrounding cultivators finally understood what was going on. It turned out that Shangguan Yingying didn't specifically look for trouble with Lan Qingyan, but because Lan Qingyan was looking for trouble with Bailey Hongzhuang, so she came forward. No wonder Shangguan Yingying was so angry. It turned out that she saw her good friend being bullied. Cloud Sword Sect was quite an extraordinary existence among many forces. They didn't expect that the young palace master of Limitless Palace who suddenly appeared was actually a good friend of Cloud Sword Sect's young palace master's wife. It seemed that Bailey Hongzhuang had existed for a long time, but they had never understood her. Once again he said, "Her business is my business." Hearing this, Lan Qingyan's temples throbbed. Why was it that every time she looked for trouble with Bailey Hongzhuang, there was always someone who came to disturb the situation? How come she didn't know that people in the cultivation world were so loyal? Or was it that Bailey Hongzhuang's popularity was unexpectedly good? No matter which one it was, she couldn't believe it. No matter how loyal cultivators were, when these two forces collided, if it wasn't a life-and-death friendship, then it was impossible to stand out. First there was Shurtian Tower, now there was Cloud Sword Sect. Didn't Bailey Hongzhuang just become the young palace master of Limitless Palace? When did she make these friendships? Lan Qingyan and Ouyang Etian had 10,000 questions in their hearts, but they simply couldn't think of an answer. When the disciples of Limitless Palace saw that the people of Cloud Sword Sect suddenly came to help, they were also stunned for a moment. The popularity of the young palace master was unexpectedly good. Although Limitless Palace had some dealings with Cloud Sword Sect, they were completely unaware that the relationship between Shangguan Yingying and Bailey Hongzhuang was already good to such an extent. Originally, they had thought that they were going to participate in the Battle of Zhualu because they were isolated and without help. Who would have thought that they would have quite a few helpers? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded at Shangguan Yingying and Wen Xiren. She was very grateful for their help. Shangguan Yingying, this is a personal grudge between me and Bailey Hongzhuang. She broke my arm and poisoned me. Are you sure you want to be our public enemy because of her? Lan Qingyan's voice was cold and hard. At this point, she absolutely couldn't continue to give in. Otherwise, it would be impossible for her to make Bailey Hongzhuang hand over the antidote. After Shangguan Yingying knew what Bailey Hongzhuang had done, she couldn't help but be stunned. She really couldn't see that Bailey Hongzhuang could do such a thing. She had known Lan Qingyan for so long, but she had never seen Lan Qingyan so unlucky. However, it felt good. Chapter 2432. So what? Shangguan Yingying raised her eyebrows. Since when did the grudges between cultivators only depend on one person? I don't believe that you didn't make a move against Hongzhuang. It's just that you're not capable enough. Once these words came out, Lan Qingyan's face suddenly darkened by another layer. She only felt that everyone's gaze towards her had turned into ridicule. After when Ziran saw that Shangguan Yingying's words were so sharp, he secretly gave her a thumbs up in his heart. His wife really hit the nail on the head. No matter when she spoke, she was always so mighty and domineering. This was the first time he saw Lan Qingyan's face so ugly. But after seeing that Lan Qingyan's other arm had disappeared, he could only sigh. The might of Di Beichen's wife was really not one bit inferior to his own wife. Shangguan Yingying, don't go too far. Lan Qingyan's face was ashen, so what if you all join? Be careful not to suffer a great loss. Lan Qingyan was simply about to explode. In the past, Shangguan Yingying didn't have the chance to be so arrogant in front of her. She didn't expect that now she actually joined forces with Bailey Hongzhuang to ridicule her. It was really abominable to the extreme. Hearing Lan Qingyan's reason, Shangguan Yingying sneered. Let's fight then. Who's afraid of who? When she said this, Shangguan Yingying secretly glanced at Wen Ziran. In fact, she had her own selfish motives. Cloud Sword sect and Lan family didn't have any dealings with each other. Although she didn't like Lan Qingyan for a long time, both sides had never fallen out with each other. After all, the major forces absolutely wouldn't fall out with each other because of the personal grudges between the two. Now it just so happened that Bailey Hongzhuang and Lan Qingyan were direct enemies. No matter how one looked at it, their Cloud Sword sect had to stand on Bailey Hongzhuang's side. Taking advantage of this opportunity, she would completely fall out with Lan Qingyan. How could Wen Ziran not know his wife's little scheme? However, although he often argued with Shangguan Yingying in his heart, he still doted on Shangguan Yingying. Now that the conflict between Bailey Hongzhuang and Lan Qingyan had reached such a stage, it was obvious that there was no room for negotiation. With his iron friendship with Di Beichen, there was no doubt about it. Moreover, the Tiangang sect had already become enemies with the Lan clan. Could it be that his Cloudsword sect would still be afraid? Seeing Shangguan Yingying's resolute attitude, Lan Qingyan was completely speechless. She didn't know what kind of charm Bailey Hongzhuang had to make others do this for her. The atmosphere suddenly became strange. Lan Qingyan and Ouyang Yitian looked at each other. Both of them were calculating in their hearts what their chances of winning were if they were to really fight. Chapter 2433. Isn't this the Sun Moon Palace's team? The Sun Moon Palace has been very low-key in recent years. They didn't even participate in the last battle of vying for supremacy. I thought they wouldn't participate this time either. How did the Sun Moon Palace's people know Bailey Hongzhuang? It seems that Bailey Hongzhuang isn't a simple person. When did our information become so limited? The surrounding cultivators couldn't help but look at each other in dismay. Their hearts were filled with disbelief. They had always thought that they were well informed. No matter what happened, they would always try their best to grasp the news firsthand. However, the young palace master of Limitless Palace had actually befriended so many forces without them knowing. This made them speechless. They had always thought that Limitless Palace only developed on its own, and didn't have much contact with the other forces. But now it seemed that they had been doing everything in secret. The disciples of Limitless Palace stared blankly at Bailey Hongzhuang in front of them. At this moment, they were completely convinced by their young palace master. They completely didn't know that their young palace master's network was so wide. Moreover, from this situation, it seemed that every force's relationship with their young palace master wasn't just ordinary. Lan Qingyan had quite a number of acquaintances here. But at this moment, no one stood up to fight alongside Lan Qingyan. Just from this point, they could see their young palace master's ability. Originally, they felt that they were isolated and helpless in this battle of vying for supremacy. But now their morale seemed to have risen in an instant. Their worries and lack of confidence completely dissipated in a short period of time. Lan Qingyan and Ouyang Yitian were also in disbelief. Bailey Hongzhuang's network was a little too shocking. Wasn't the Sun Moon Palace always hidden from the world? Among all the forces here, there weren't many forces that were familiar with the Sun Moon Palace. How did Bailey Hongzhuang even know people from the hidden Sun Moon Palace? What on earth did you do when you were a nobody? Lan Qingyan didn't like the Sun Moon Palace. Because she knew that Mu Lingbing was an outstanding disciple of the Sun Moon Palace, who later married Lan Yunxiao. Ever since Mu Lingbing's disappearance, Sun Moon Palace had made trouble for the Lan family, but in the end, nothing had been done. As a result, the Lan clan and the Sun Moon Palace had changed from a marriage alliance to a completely different relationship. Because the Sun Moon Palace had been hidden from the world all these years, she didn't feel much about it. She didn't expect that the Sun Moon Palace's team would also participate in the battle for Deer Pursuit this time. She felt a little strange as she watched. Miss Gu. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and nodded at Sun Moon Palace's Gu Zhiqin. Gu Zhiqin was the niece of the Sun Moon Hall's great elder, Gu Jinghe. Previously, Bailey Hongzhuang had met her in the Sun Moon Palace. However, at that time, she had focused all of her experience on her grandmother's illness, so they hadn't interacted much. This time, the Sun Moon Palace's participation in the battle for the throne of martial arts must have been specially arranged by her grandmother to lend her a helping hand. Gu Zhiqin's face rippled with a happy smile. Before she participated in the battle for the throne of martial arts, she had received an order to spare no effort to help Bailey Hongzhuang. When she found out that Bailey Hongzhuang had actually become the young palace master of Limitless Palace, she was extremely shocked. The palace master's granddaughter was truly amazing. Not only was her medical skills strong, her strength was astonishing, and her fortune was also extraordinary. Chapter 2434. Ever since Bailey Hongzhuang and the others came to the Sun Moon Palace, Gu Zhiqin had learned from Gu Jinghe about what the palace master and the others had gone through. She also hated the Yu clan and the Lan clan's actions to the extreme. She knew that Bailey Hongzhuang wanted revenge, and she also hoped that she could help Bailey Hongzhuang. After all, she was able to achieve what she had today without the help of the Sun Moon Palace. Returning the favor was what she should do. Young Palace Master Bailey, it seems that you have encountered some trouble. If you need our Sun Moon Palace's help, just say the word. We will definitely not refuse. Gu Zhiqin didn't show too much intimacy with Bailey Hongzhuang, because she didn't want the Lan clan to discover their relationship. Therefore, Gu Zhiqin's words only made everyone think that Bailey Hongzhuang seemed to have helped the Sun Moon Palace before. So the Sun Moon Palace came to repay this favor. Shangguan Yingying and Wen Ziren looked at each other. They didn't expect that Bailey Hongzhuang had so many helpers. Ouyang Yitian and Lan Qingyan's faces were gloomy. The change in the situation was completely beyond their expectations. Originally, they had a 50-50 chance of winning in a 2-on-2 situation. Now the Sun Moon Palace had joined in. From Gu Zhiqin's words, they knew that the Sun Moon Palace would definitely not just stand by and watch once they started fighting. In this way it would be 3 against 1. They would lose without a doubt. The originally sure-win situation had unknowingly turned into a sure-lose situation. The two of them couldn't figure it out. Most importantly, compared to the previous situation, the current situation was a little awkward. Not to mention that there was no point in continuing to persist. If they wanted to give up, it would be too shameful. If Bailey Hongzhuang refused, they would lose even more face. Haha, Lan Qingyan and Ouyang Yitian are dumbfounded. Xiao He laughed proudly. She didn't deliberately lower her voice. It wasn't like only Lan Qingyan was allowed to find helpers. Their master didn't find helpers, but if they did find helpers, Lan Qingyan, this hateful person, couldn't be compared to them. Lan Qingyan, this person, other than relying on numbers, has no ability at all. If Ouyang Yitian wasn't here, I'm afraid she wouldn't even have the guts to talk to master. Xiaobai didn't mind stabbing another knife. There was no need to show mercy to a person like Lan Qingyan. Not only did Xiao He Hongzhuang, but almost everyone present Lan Qingyan looked at her with pity. What goes around comes around. Who would have thought that Lan Qingyan would also fall into such a situation? Lan Qingyan, if you want to fight, start now. I don't have time to waste it. Bailey Hongzhuang looked condescendingly at Lan Qingyan. The contempt in her words was obvious. Chapter 2435. Obviously, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest would not give them a way out. This kind of embarrassing situation was also unfamiliar to Ouyang Etian. Lan Qingyan, weren't you clamoring to make us disappear? Why are you mute now? Yan Aoshuang looked at Lan Qingyan provocatively. From the beginning to the end, it was Lan Qingyan who had been finding trouble with them. Moreover, every time she would clamor to annihilate all of them. It really made people unhappy. That's right. Every time she comes, her arrogance scares people to death. It's as if everyone is afraid of her. Hit her. If you have the ability, then do it now. Pei Yifan and the rest were not polite at all. They just wanted to slap Lan Qingyan's face. Previously, she relied on her own strength to snatch their things. Now that it was their turn to be powerful, they naturally would not let Lan Qingyan be happy. Bailey Hongzhuang looked coldly at Lan Qingyan. She noticed Lan Qingyan's expression that looked as if she wanted to find a hole to hide in. She also felt a kind of happiness spreading in her heart, but more of it was hatred. Her parents had survived under the ridicule and sarcasm of Lan Qingyan's family all these years. That kind of humiliation was enough to make them commit suicide. However, in order to be able to see her again, her parents had been struggling at death's door until now. Thinking of how Lan Qingyan had looked at her father and mother with contempt, Bailey Hongzhuang felt her chest burn with anger. She hated that she couldn't tear Lan Qingyan's body into 10,000 pieces. However, before she took Lan Qingyan's life, she wanted Lan Qingyan to suffer the same kind of humiliation. Lan Qingyan, you wanted to snatch my things first. It's normal for me to break one of your arms. Originally, I wanted to mind my own business, but you kept finding trouble with me. You even made up this groundless lie, saying that I fed you poison. If I really fed you poison, do you think you would still be alive now? Even if you're the young master of the Lan family, it's too much to bully others like this. Do you really think that I, Bailey Hongzhuang, am a vegetarian? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Lan Qingyan with burning eyes. The flickering anger in her eyes could not wait to devour Lan Qingyan. His words left Lan Qingyan in a daze. That astonishing aura left her in a daze. The previous Bailey Hongzhuang had never revealed such an attitude. It really scared her. Everyone only knew that Bailey Hongzhuang broke one of Lan Qingyan's arms, but they did not know what happened. Now, after listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's explanation, they finally understood. So, Lan Qingyan was the first one who took the initiative to find fault with Bailey Hongzhuang. However, they did not expect Lan Qingyan to accuse Bailey Hongzhuang of poisoning her. This was a little sinister. Lan Qingyan was dumbfounded when she saw Bailey Hongzhuang pouring all the dirty water on her. Bailey Hongzhuang was the one who fed her poison. Why was Bailey Hongzhuang pretending to be innocent? The disciples of Limitless Palace were also stunned. However, after thinking about it carefully, they realized that only the two of them knew about the incident. No one from the other forces saw it. Therefore, no matter what, there was no evidence. They could just let them talk nonsense. At this time, the disciples of Limitless Palace naturally stood on Bailey Hongzhuang's side without hesitation. They immediately started to support her. They wanted to anger Lan Qingyan to death. Chapter 2436. Ouyang Etian obviously didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang to make such a false accusation. But from the looks of others, he knew that almost everyone believed in Bailey Hongzhuang. In fact, even he and Lan Qingyan didn't know what Bailey Hongzhuang fed her. At least until now, Lan Qingyan didn't show any signs of discomfort. Could it be Bailey Hongzhuang really just fed Lan Qingyan a pill that had no effect at all, and only wanted to use it as an opportunity to make Lan Qingyan feel fear? After knowing all this, Shangguan Yingying looked at Lan Qingyan with disdain. She didn't like Lan Qingyan for a day or two, but she didn't expect Lan Qingyan to become even worse. Bailey Hongzhuang, if it wasn't for your contract beast, would you cripple my hand? Stop dreaming. Lan Qingyan was unconvinced. In terms of strength, Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't her opponent. This was something she was absolutely unwilling to admit. Ouyang Etian saw that Lan Qingyan completely missed the point, and his face became ugly. At this moment Lan Qingyan said such words. Wasn't this the same as tacitly agreeing to Bailey Hongzhuang's previous accusation? This wasn't a good thing. Sure enough, at this moment, everyone already understood everything. Bailey Hongzhuang looked coldly at Lan Qingyan. Don't talk nonsense. Since there is already a grudge between us, why don't we have a good contest and see if you disappear or I disappear? Taking advantage of the situation, this was something Bailey Hongzhuang was very good at. Now that she had the upper hand, there was no reason for her to let Lan Qingyan leave so easily. When these words came out, Lan Qingyan couldn't help but panic. From the situation when Bailey Hongzhuang fought with her earlier, she knew that Bailey Hongzhuang didn't have any scruples about her. If Ouyang Yiqian didn't appear, then she would have already become a ghost under Bailey Hongzhuang's sword. Now that the three parties were fighting, she and Ouyang Yiqian would be in danger. Shangguan Yingying and Gu Zhiqin stood beside Bailey Hongzhuang without saying a word. Their attitude couldn't be more obvious. As long as they took action, they would not hesitate to form an alliance with Limitless Palace. When the other team saw that the show was getting more and more exciting, the interest in their eyes also became more and more intense. To them, no matter which team fell, it was a good thing. Young Palace Master Bailey, if this matter gets out of hand, it won't benefit either of us. Why don't we each take a step back? Ouyang Yiqian sized up the situation for a moment and decided to lower his attitude. Where there is life, there is hope. If he were to die here, that would be the most unwise move. Listening to Ouyang Yiqian's words, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but chuckle. Young Master Ouyang's words are really interesting. I remember that not long ago you were still threatening my life. Why didn't you say that we should both take a step back? Don't you think it's funny that you're saying such things now? Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, everyone couldn't help but laugh. Previously, Lan Qingyan and Ouyang Yiqian's attitude was completely planning to take Bailey Hongzhuang's life. Now it became friendship first. It was a bit ridiculous. You're tuning into the Li Mei Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.